Guys sent in, but it doesn't really show me like pictures or anything. It just looks like there's a trailer up there.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, August 8th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. What's your pleasure regarding the minutes? Move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Communications, none. Old business. I'll start by explaining that if you'd like to speak tonight, please fill out one of these sheets. They're right over here on the table. And when it's your turn to speak, I'll call your name and come up to the podium and then speak to the Plan Commission about what your issue is, please. Thank you. Item number 1, discussion and action on the request for a conditional use permit for a transient residential use located at 1059 Shadow Lane, submitted by Lambeau Field Investments, LLC.
So this was a TRP request that was previously heard at the June 13th and July 11th meetings of the Plan Commission. At the July 11th meeting, it was recommended approval with conditions by the Plan Commission. The petition was referred back to the Plan Commission by the Green Bay Common Council at their July 19th hearing. Here we are on Shadow Lane, just down from Lambeau. A comprehensive plan does call for residential in the area. The zoning in the area is also residential. This is the map of the TRPs we have. Red are the existing approved sites. Yellow are the proposed sites. We are down here at the bottom. Actually, the other yellow one has now been approved by council as well. The staff recommendation has not changed from the previous. Staff recommends approval of the request. Answering your questions.
Thank you. Further questions? Yes?
Yes,
Commissioner Burma.
I'm wondering what you can tell us about the council's concerns. This one, and why they didn't approve this, but did approve.
I believe the Alderman's here, which shed a little bit of light on the subject. My understanding is there was a petition with some neighbors opposed to the request.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a petition noted at the meeting that was circulated with, I believe it was 33 signatures opposed to it from residents. I didn't see the specific petition, but I understand Alderman Weary has the petition. And I think it was on that basis that it was referred back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm late.
Thank you. We need to suspend the rules. There are some people here who'd like to speak.
Move to suspend.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Alderman Weary, would you like to speak first?
Thank you. How's everybody? Nice day. I do have an update since last time. There was a petition circulated by Mark Anderson, who's here, been very active in the neighborhoods over the years and president of the Neighborhood Association. And he has collected over 60 signatures, I think 65, from the three streets right around it. So I'd like to submit it if you could put it in the record. So I've always felt you go with what the neighborhood wants, and last time it was kind of up in the air what they wanted, but it was pretty clear after that meeting and going into council that immediate neighborhood didn't want it. There are some who very much want it, but the majority don't. So that's going to be where my position is. Any questions for me?
How about yourself?
Yeah, I would be opposed.
Would you? Okay. Yeah, and only because of the majority?
That's who I represent.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always said I will do what the neighborhoods want. Some neighborhoods open it with welcome arms, some don't.
Gotta listen to.
It's really their neighborhood.
I agree. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yep.
Mike Leonarduzzi?
Mike Landuzzi, 1059 Shadow Lane, represent one of the owners of Lambeau Field Investments. I don't know, I guess I just come up here with a couple of concerns, and the original petition that they had signed, we had found out that there were some signatures that were forged signatures. And there is another house that is approximately a block away, and it's in the same radius of people would touch it, and it was approved at the city council meeting. And there are other businesses in our neighborhood that are very close to our house that operate on a day-to-day basis, and we're looking at a 12-weekend possible business arrangement. So I guess, and it's fairly hypocritical that some of these people that are actually very much opposed to us are the ones that operate these businesses, and I don't understand it.
Do you have another one that's in operation, did you say?
There was one that was approved at the last city council meeting,
Okay.
and it's about a block away.
Okay.
And Alderman Weary was in favor of it, so. And again, I believe that our circles of people would overlap somewhat.
Are there any questions at this point? Yes, Commissioner Brown.
Just ask the staff if they would put back the map that shows where the various locations are. Okay, those are long blocks, yeah, I see. Thank you.
And where is this location again?
This would be the
Yellow
yellow
one.
square at the bottom right.
At the bottom right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah and Steve Drager.
Hello.
Hi.
I was here for the last meeting. We kind of talked about Steve, my husband, would probably be one of the managers of the place because we are there for every Packer game, before and after. So he would be one of the contact people if needed. We did talk to people on the west side of Oneida Street that are also attempting for this. I don't know if they are the ones that got it, but they did say that Alderman Weary was for it. So it does feel like it's who you know sometimes too, that kind of discrimination. I feel that Josie and Howie would run a tight ship and a good business in our neighborhood. I loved to see the houses too. I forget their name, who they are redoing this house. It was probably deemed unlivable, the house that they are cleaning up. Also, they do have an awesome garage and bathroom and everything in the garage. But I love seeing that this house could have just gone down and down and down. I don't want to see that on Shadow Lane either. That is one of my big concerns. If you look across the street, it's a whole different story. I'm hoping all this development kind of happens. I'm not saying I want a frat house party neighborhood at all. I have, kids too. That it is a huge concern why we're willing to also take on a lot of that responsibilities, because I do trust, with stipulations, and I would trust that Howie and Doozy, would do anything actually that the neighbors would ask. And the clientele that they would be getting also are not, again, your college level clients either. That I'm not really sure what, I totally understand their neighbors, Heidi and Mark. They are a huge asset to the neighborhood. They help a lot of the neighbors out with anything. They're good people too, but I'm not really sure why we say yes to some and no to, and they're good business people. And they've proved it through the businesses that they own too. Yes.
I wonder if you would reconsider your comment about who you know in light of the fact that Alderman Weary spoke in favor of this motion last time. And
It's
for a similar
sure,
reason,
who I
that
know
a
of-
majority of the neighbors he then knew were in favor of it, and this council passed on it with that in mind.
So the couple that had bought this house were very positive about, and that Chris Weary was for it, because again, it was on the west side of Oneida Street. And I said, well, we kind of had a different experience. So that's what I mean.
I'm
So
talking
then,
about the Shadow Lane place that you're representing now.
okay, so
And
then
Alderman
for,
Weary was in favor of it the last time it came before Plan Commission because the majority of the neighborhood expressed themselves
I'm
as
not
being
sure
in
that he was
favor.
in favor of it the last planning, I thought he okayed it, like he okayed it.
Because that was the
Please,
majority
well,
then,
Okay, he stated the majority of the
Yes,
neighborhood
okay.
is in favor of the request.
but now there's 60-some people that are against it, so now he switches over because the majority is against it.
Yeah,
And that's what,
So-
is why is that? Because.
He's
but-
supposed to.
Right,
It's an
yeah.
older person.
Yeah. So now, I guess my concern is, okay, when we're getting 60-some people, how big is a circle in that neighborhood? I mean, we could get probably 1,000 for it by all of Green Bay, if we have to. So what is kind of the vicinity around the house?
I understand the
And that-
concern.
So, I mean, for us, it should be because we are right across the street from it. That's where we live. So it should be maybe like the 10 houses in that circle. Okay, what's the majority? Because we're the ones that are going to be dealing with it every single Packer game and things like that. And it's not 20 blocks down the road and we got that signature. So it's just like where's our guideline for that?
And my parents, they live probably around 6 blocks away, and what I will say too is that you can't pick your neighbors. They keep getting horrible neighbors, new neighbors, that I'll be honest with you, I kind of like how quiet this house is, and how lucky we are that we don't have to call the drug reinforcement team, that I don't have to try and contact people for the 2 houses that live by my parents. You know, they too have had, you know, what they were used to in the neighborhood, and so I do understand that, but right now, the house is very quiet, and Packer season everywhere around in our area, I feel, is fun and exciting and not the quietest. you
And if
know,
there is a problem,
But I don't feel
you call the
there's-
cops. That's what we have
Yeah.
them for. So they're the ones that are supposed to kind of make the decision if it is a nuisance property. Well, it's more phone calls you give, that's what it's going to be deemed. So as of right now, to say, well, no, we don't want it, when we're for it, it's not our property, we aren't going to benefit
But
nothing.
we're willing to
it's
take
nice and
on the
quiet now.
management of it, right, right.
So-
Are there other questions? Thank you. Annette Chavez?
I live at 1070. For one thing, we're not against Mike having the house, like he seems like a nice guy. It's just the purpose of the house. So we all lived in the neighborhood for years. We bought him as a residential. I mean, if I want to do a farm someday, I can't go build a farm next to his business and call it a business. Can't change everything. We want to keep it residential. We were promised that would never come down this side of Oneida Street. Talking about people, he always promised, 4 to 6 people he'd have at the house. You could ask him how many people he had at his house on Saturday night. He had between 14 to 18 people there that slept overnight in their 2 bedrooms, he said. That's way past the 4 to 6 people. And for Sarah, she's talking about leaving in a few years. Who's going to manage it then? She plans, when her daughter gets older, she's leaving. You know, we just want to keep it the way it is.
I have a question. You said you were promised it would never go down the other side.
Yeah, we were, when these
Promised
first started, they said they were going to keep it west of Oneida, not coming down to this section.
Did we say
Who were
that?
they?
I thought you guys had said that one time, when these first started, we went to one when it was that purple house right there, and they said this was supposed to stop way back then, that it wasn't, keep an area residential, and, we lived there for a long time. People are just buying these houses purposely for that reason. He's only been there 7, 8 months. We've been there 35 years, our neighbors have been there 50, 60 years. They've been there from the very beginning of these neighborhoods, in the intent of keeping them residential. If they want to change them, they have all that other section up there, if they want to build a different house or move a different house. We're committed to this neighborhood. I mean, I said 16 people is way past the 4 to 6 people.
Commissioner?
Could you point out where you live, please?
1070, 4 houses across the street here.
A little bit hard to read the address.
Yeah. I think this is, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 right here,
Oh, okay.
right there.
You're right in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's very possible that when we were discussing one of the one of the homes in the area that we decided not to move past Oneida at that time, but I don't know that we ever promised never to go past Oneida.
Yeah, weird. Because even like, there's one lady here who sits back here, there was one in Kenwood that was approved, and now they took it away because she had people too. She can tell you she had like jumping over fences and being a nuisance, and, you know, the same thing that was approved for, they had up to 15 people at one time in the house.
And that's something that if any house in Green Bay is a nuisance,
Right.
then the neighbors can alert the city about that, regardless of whether it's a TRP or
Right.
a different type of house, and that can change things as well. Commissioner?
The house on Oneida and Lombardi, just for informational purposes, basically, as I recall, was one of the very first, not the very first, but right in that mix, so we never really drew lines, so I don't think.
For them. Thank you. Thank you for your memory.
Okay.
Thank you. Diane Wilson?
I didn't say I was going to speak. I said no.
Okay. Thank you. I should read the checklist.
I have an opinion, but no.
And Mark Wagner, you do not want to speak, is that correct?
Right, but I think I probably should. I'm the guy right next to them. I'm at 1053, so I'm on the corner of Shadow and Gross and Lombardi. I'm right here, so right next to them. And I don't see what the big problem is. And in fact, I own a property in Ashwaubenon over on Brookwood, and they just had a meeting, and they've adopted a certain amount of standards or guidelines. I'm like her. I don't want to do any public speaking, but I feel I got to power through and just say it. With a few checks and balances and guidelines, maybe a backup phone number or two in case there's problems. Maybe the ability to take away the approval or the license or whatever, I'm not sure of the terminology, but hopefully you get what I mean. If it's a problem, undo it. There's got to be some sort of mechanism for that. But as of right now, I keep saying this, I spoke at the last meeting, you're not going to notice one difference on a Packer Sunday between that house and any of the neighbors' houses. The whole street is going to be full of cars, the sidewalk's going to have people walking up and down, everybody's going to be visiting and in a good mood, and if there's problems, like Steve and Sarah were saying, that's what the police are for. But I've been there 5 years, and I recall one time when the police had to come. And I don't know, that's my opinion, and I wanted to express it. I felt I had to say something, especially living so close, and the fact that this guy is a businessman, he's got an attorney to represent him, he's gonna have a lease, probably with, the nuisance ordinance in it. He's gonna very clearly explain what's gonna happen. It's my opinion that he's going to run it as a business, so it's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we need to return to regular order of business. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yes,
Do we have a copy of this petition with the 60 signatures?
it's coming down.
Oh, we do. Oh, sorry. So,
It got stuck in.
has anyone had time to check and see if any of these people that signed are people who currently have TRPs?
Well, we just got that, so I
Okay,
don't think so.
right, okay.
Thank you.
I did look at the addresses, all the addresses are in the immediate neighborhood.
Well, where does the 1100 block, I mean, is that for a ton, 1,000? So that start after Oneida Street? Is Oneida Street the 1100 where the 1000s to 1100 split?
I believe so.
Okay.
1100 looks to start halfway down the block on Shadow Lane as you go to the left.
Yeah, I can't see the numbers. The
Need a
last,
magnifying glass.
last week's, I could, the last month's, I could
Starts about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 houses west of the subject property.
So on the current, on the, on
On
that
the same
block?
block, about 7 houses west. If you look at the closer up aerial, you can see the addresses a little better.
That changes to what, the 10 there?
Changes to the 1100 block at about 7 houses away.
Coming towards this house?
Going west from this
Going west.
location.
Okay, all these signatures we just got, you didn't have the opportunity to look at them either. It was 1100 and 1000. And there's only one 1800. You have a valid point there. They're just,
Well, and I'm just looking, there's a lot of Kenwood and a lot of Thorndale as
Yeah.
well.
Yes, Commissioner?
Same old, folks. This is not the time to submit this
Yeah.
to us. For one thing, we're having a hard time even reading this, and
I mean, I've got,
this,
like,
this doesn't mean nothing to me at this point in time.
I mean, there's 4 signatures for one
Except all
address.
I can go by is what the alderman says. So I don't know how old that is, or where it comes from, or where the people are in the neighborhood.
718.
Alderman Weary?
Thank you, I appreciate
In
it.
the July.
I can tell you, I did look at the signatures, and they're all from right in this area here. I mean, here's the house that's being applied for here, here, here. And there's higher numbers because on Gross on the right of the are the 17 and 1800 block. So it's all in this area right here.
That helps.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't see any from outside of the area or a different city or,
I
they're all
guess-
residents.
Right, and just when I see like 4 signatures from one address, I'm not saying that 4 people don't live there, but I would love to see just the plotting of who's against. Honestly, that would, that's something I would
So
like
you're
to
actually
see.
saying it's these, Chris?
Because,
Yeah,
I
it's the
mean,
first street, Place Street's in the Upper Gross, Upper Oneida.
Okay.
This one was in Alderman Zimma's district, entirely different neighborhood, as you can see. This one's way far away from that one, the one up on Ridge.
right,
These houses are being torn down, empty lots around it, and rental units. No one called me to oppose that one. So it's entirely different neighborhoods. I didn't want that to be confused. And last time, actually, I think I had no opinion on it, because I said I had to do further
That's right, you
research. yeah.
stated that
Yeah.
the majority of the
I just thought it was important to, I did review them, and they're all from that immediate vicinity. Thanks.
Thank you. So we've got, some things to discuss, but I actually think that at this point in time, denying any of these is really going to not be the correct way to go because of the changing tide in terms of Airbnbs, in terms of other types of short-term rentals, and also in terms of what we have in our agenda later tonight.
yeah.
And I don't know that we can turn them down. I think this is a changing neighborhood, and I don't think that that's going to stop. It's definitely changing and evolving. I know that as a resident of Green Bay, if somebody put a house next to me that was used as something that was a short-term rental, I don't know that I would like that. But I also know that in tourist towns, that happens all the time. And this is definitely a tourist area in Green Bay. If we were in Door County and any of those small towns, we would have short-term rentals next to us no matter where we lived, pretty much. And I don't know that we're going to stop this or change it. It's, Commissioner Broom.
I think I would speak first of all to the tourist area. When we first started doing this, we saw the Shadow Lane area right across from Lambeau Field as prime for this sort of thing because people had moved into the area knowing that they lived across from Lambeau Field. but people who live on this east side of Oneida, on Shadow Lane, on that outside block of Shadow Lane, also live across from that prime tourist area, which includes the arena, I'm losing my names. Resch Center, thank you, I was going to say KI and that was wrong. So there's a similarity there that I think is important. Along the way, though, under our current rules, I have been swayed by 2 points, and one of them has been neighborhood feeling. And that seems to me to be very important. Another has been the extent to which the petitioner has convinced us that they are aware of what the issues are and will be addressing those. And although this is the third time that this has come before us, we have yet to see a draft of what that lease might look like or what kinds of information might be given to anybody who would be renting from them. And those two things together concern me greatly.
I agree with you about the lease portion of that, Commissioner Brenner.
Oh, yeah.
About the lease. I also, but I don't feel comfortable ruling on making a decision based on neighbors' sentiment in this case because neighbors moved. And I don't think that we can, again.
However, and I did forget the other major point, however, neighbors move in part because the neighborhood stops being the residential neighborhood they expected it to be. And I think the final comment that our last speaker made is really important. This will be run as a business. This is not a commercial district. This is a residential district. I'm not sure to what extent this wouldn't be exactly the kind of situation that doesn't make sense. So.
Yes, Commissioner?
Yeah, I guess I don't know that I feel comfortable ruling. I'm not sure that ruling one way or another, because if we just say, okay, like we did last week, it's going to go right back to council, it's going to come right back to us again. So I don't know if there's a way for us to have staff go over the addresses and kind of block that off so we can see what neighbors are opposed versus
Would you like to
against.
see? I did it.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, can you stick it up on the screen?
Now, can you switch the cord?
Oh, fancy. Yay. Because, you know, I guess I had always been under the impression that Oneida was the kind of stopping block, but, you know, we're looking at that whole stadium entertainment district, and it's changing.
Well, this information that we were just given on these sheets.
Yeah, so I took the addresses from the sheet, took the addresses from the sheet, I took off any duplicates.
Oh, okay.
So here's the applicant down here, and I don't know why this is stretching out so weird. How the color scheme looking at this may affect what. That's a little better. Yes, color's awful. The applicant is down here in the yellow. All the reds, that's an address that has the signature on on the petition.
Good job, that's what we're looking for.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
I think if you look at addresses that, where people either were at the last meeting or signed the petition that was given to us at the last meeting, I believe this property owner, as well as a couple here, were in favor of it.
Correct, and I was trying to pull up that one, but I
Immediate
He's got a
neighbor.
list of green, of
You've got
the
a
four
greens.
from yesterday, or from last week.
Just immediate neighbors or
That
something.
was the thing, here's why.
Okay. If you want me to put them on, I can put them on. Correct. Yeah, I mean, we don't have any, like Paul was saying, I mean, in terms of applicants, I mean, whether those are rentals or owner occupied, I mean, this isn't verifying it, it's just strictly putting the addresses on.
And it could be one or two people from those addresses. It all came down as the address, right?
Correct. I mean, some of them, I think, came in at 4. in there.
So, will you tell us again why this was returned to us, please?
Because of this petition.
Well, when we reviewed it at our last meeting, the majority was for the project. We would, I understand the confusion that people have about this. Frankly, we've been a little confused about it, but we look at what we hear from the neighbors. And 2 meetings ago, when this first came to us, we heard one individual say that they had the neighborhood meeting and neighbors were for it, and we had another neighbor who was immediately next to it saying, oh, wait a minute, people aren't for it. So we asked as a commission that people substantiate the support or opposition to it. And then when it came back at our July meeting, it appeared from what was given to us at the time. We only act on the information we got at the time. From the information we were given, it appeared that a majority were in favor of it. And then when it reached the council, the other petition was referred to. So we didn't, as a commission, we didn't have the benefit of having that to make our decisions, so our recommendation to the council. So council referred it back to us.
Did the council have this information that was presented to us tonight?
It was referred to, but nobody saw the petition. The council members saw it, maybe Alderman Weary did. I don't think any of the rest of us saw the petition. The display of, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Manning. Now, have we asked in the past for some operating plans or leasing plans or anything like that? And they've never supplied it?
That we have not got a copy of the lease from them at this time.
Okay.
There was a plan handed out to council members at the council meeting. I don't know if I have that here, but there was one.
There is one in our materials, but it does not cover, for instance, noise issues, parking issues, a number of the things that I know are of concern to neighborhoods. There's reference to a lease that would cover such issues, but we don't have that. And most of the operating plans we've looked at in the past have been attentive to neighborhood concerns, and these seem more attentive to what will or will not be available to the guests within the rental property.
I mean, yes. As far as the nuisance ordinance, unfortunately, we just purchased a property not too long ago, and I'm now intimately familiar with it. It's 3 nuisance calls, and once there are 3, not nuisance, they can be any calls for any kind of disturbance. And once you get 3 calls, that's when it begins court costs and fines, and you have to start attending courts. So, that's something that is out there for any property, and we don't even have a TRP, it's just a regular rental property. So, I agreed with whomever it was that said that you can't pick your neighbors, because you could get someone, they could say, all right, fine, we're just gonna rent it for a year, and you could get really awful neighbors. I mean, with the TRPs, generally it's pretty quiet during the week, and then it's just rowdy on the weekends, which it's rowdy all over there. When I passed the property, walking to family's house on Shadow Lane after the family night, the property didn't call attention to my eye. So, I mean, there was nothing, there were no lights on it, because I'm like, oh, wait, this is that one. It was dark, and there was nobody in there. There were like 2 cars parked in the driveway, so it didn't call my attention to it. Just kind of my observations.
Thank you. Yes, Vice Chair Gilbert.
As a former alderman, I too was always in the belief that you vote according to the majority, or at least, what you feel is the majority of the area, of the neighborhood. Now, this shows me that even if it's not a majority, it's a substantial amount of the neighborhood that is against this. And my feeling is that you go with the neighborhood. You go where they want you to go. And the neighborhood seems to be against this. So that's the position I'm going to take. I'm going to vote against it.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Wisbisky.
The reason we're in this position is we're putting the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is, here's the different outline again for the TRP. And it's lacking some of the things that we have had on other ones. As a former alderman also, I can understand the alderman making the position that he makes. Not only is it a fact that they vote for him, but it's a fact that he's sincerely involved with his district, and that's who he works with, and he works with the majority of the people. Majority of the people rule, unless there's some other rules. And it's very unfortunate that we don't have specific rules, because in this case here, if we do approve this tonight, and we look at that, it looks to me like your way of doing it, alderman, wow, I don't want to lose all those votes. You're doggone right, I'm all for it, let's go. And we bounce back and forth for approvals and disapprovals on these things, mainly because we don't have the proper set in concrete guidelines. And we just keep saying we're coming up with it, we're coming up with it, we're coming up with it. If I would have had my druthers, I would never have addressed any of these things anymore after we had decided that we have to draw something up. Because I think I said it last time, I'll say it again, we're wasting our time. We really are at trying to fight these things through. And there's logic in the way it's being approached, but yet it's not a golden rule. And somebody brought up that Schwab, and I was looking at it now. And, boy, they're fighting amongst themselves. They can't come up with any rules or organizations yet they're still making these decisions. So if I was a judge just judging this, I would just look at that, and being an ex-alderman, I would just say, wow, majority rules here, folks. Too bad you haven't got your act together. So I guess we're going to have to go with the people. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. But at one point in time, I represented over 9,000 people, and as high as 13,000 people. It made a big difference as my district developed way, way big and kept on growing and growing and growing. And you had to keep up with the times. And wow, I wish I don't know what to say about it. I just don't, almost feel like you almost took some words out of my mouth. I don't think we're in a position to actually make a justification or a call on it. I think that maybe this is the point where we draw a line and say, hey, let's get the facts on these TRPs. Let's get them all the same. That should be number one. Number two, somehow maybe publicize this more, get the opposing people also, and now make a fair evaluation of what the dots are. Are they red or are they green? Wow.
And then the purple are the switched votes, so they were for and now they're
And again, I
against.
acknowledge you for such a great job.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
He's got the green up
I know,
there
right?
now, so,
I know.
Two were on the list that initially supported, but then they were signed that petition, so I put switch.
Two on the list thought they were signing for someone else, and I talked to them today.
Excuse me, ma'am. Please don't.
and what this represents to me right now, I was looking at the green and the red. The people in the green, and I'm surprised that, as I recall, wasn't this person here going to take care of the yard and cut the grass and plow the snow? And boy, he was going to do everything. And I don't see him.
He's here, he spoke.
He's on the
He
corner.
spoke.
He lives on the corner of Gross and.
Oh, I thought it was the one on the other side.
The green right next to him.
But I wish we didn't have to make a call on it, I really don't, but I guess we got to move on. So.
There are a couple of interesting.
That's my humble opinion, you're entitled to it.
It's right next to another TRP on the corner of Oneida and Shadow,
Yeah.
and it's surrounded by all red. Because that one on the corner right there is a TRP, has a TRP right now.
Isn't that Debbie's house?
Yes.
Huh? I thought she was on the corner, not the one that.
She is on the corner.
She's right on the corner, yeah. And that was one of the first ones, some time ago, I just mentioned that we had done that.
And that was specifically because it was a duplex where the owner was going to be living on one side.
But if you'll notice also, what we have done is we have focused on a certain area.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, is that a decision factor that maybe we should be drawing boundaries for? And I think Ashwaubenon is going to be coming up with that. And they're watching us to see how we're, no other way of saying
Well-
it, basically stumbling through these things.
That's a possibility, but we have allowed them outside of this area.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
I just had a couple of comments here. First, in terms of Ashwaubenon, I did talk to an Ashwaubenon official recently, and he said that they might be moving in the direction of limiting them not to a particular geographic area, but so many in the village that they would allow. But not, right, but
First
not-
come, first served.
But not to target a particular area, because, you'd end up like they used to have bars on Broadway, because that's the line where, so they all show up there. The other thing I find interesting about this is that, there aren't signatures from all these people who are along here on Shadow Lane.
No, where are they?
It's people, a lot of people who, I don't know, I suppose it's for the sake of the neighborhood, that a lot of these people are quite a distance and, really aren't going to be that impacted by what happens down here. So that's my opinion. I'm trying to look at this thing as objectively as I can, and, sometimes when you sit on the side of the table, you have people who are arguing for and people who are arguing against, and you have to try to sort it out in terms of, does it make sense? Would it create some disorder? Are there negative impacts and so on? I did a little bit of research in kind of preparing for number 5 on our agenda, and one of the things I came across was a court case involving Cedarburg that tried to deny this type of use, short-term rentals. And the courts, Circuit Court and the Appeals Court said that your zoning defines the use of the property. So if you have residential zoning, it doesn't matter what the length of the residential use is. And their conclusion was that in residential zoning, that's what you're doing with short-term rentals. They did not agree saying that this was a commercial use in a residential area. And it's just like that particular house, if it were rented out for more than 28 days, it would be allowed. Well, the owner, if a property owner is renting out their house on a monthly basis, it would, they still would have a profit motive, just like, like a person who would rent it out for short-term rentals. So, it isn't necessarily commercial, it's still residential. And I think it's important to make that distinction. All of the requirements that our ordinances have for residential properties certainly would apply for this as well. So I guess that's where it is in my opinion. And I think that there are a couple ways of handling this. We could postpone this until we talk about number 5. and get a decision on number 5, or we could try to move under our current ordinance and make a decision on this one. This has been held up for a couple of months.
Want or not?
Just to Alderman Nenning's point, in terms of whether this is held or not, or action taken on item 5, because this applicant submitted under the current ordinance, that would be judged under the merits of the current ordinance. So even if we would adopt or do something with that item to change the ordinance, we'd still be looking at this under the parameters of what's currently governing.
But if we were to change the ordinance and have different requirements like have been suggested, making these have licenses under the state regulations, that would still apply here, wouldn't it?
No.
It would not?
No.
It would be considered non-conforming, basically.
It would be non-conforming.
But if the property was sold, then it would go away in terms of, it would have to then become conforming.
That is not changed as part of the current draft.
Yes, Commissioner.
I have a very big problem with that. I think that if we adopt another ordinance, it's not an issue that would grandfather anybody in the past. I think they should be grandfathered the other way, because if we're going to adopt an ordinance that's long overdue, I would think that everybody who has these places, that should be part of that ordinance, has to actually abide by that same ordinance. We should have one common ordinance for all of them. I don't care if they were done 10 years ago, if they're just done tomorrow or whatever. I wouldn't have a hard time with that part. And I think that's what Dave was probably looking at. You certainly can't have two ordinances out there, the old one and the new one. Well, everybody should be treated equal. I mean, isn't that kind of prejudice or something?
Happens with our grandfather time.
I think they should be grandfathered in, definitely. Give that some thought, guys. Holy man.
Well, those petitions had their due process, they were approved on their own merits or denied on their own merits, or lack of merits, I guess, so. I guess.
Thus far, our procedure has been to look at what neighbors have to say, to look at whether there's an acceptable plan for managing the property, and also a willingness and a plan for complying with the requirements of our current ordinance for room tax and everything else, and judging it on those grounds, basically weighing the factors. And I do think in terms of meeting the requirements of our ordinance about having a decent operating plan for maintenance of the property and so on. I think that the applicant has fulfilled those requirements. But obviously it's one of those issues where some people will be for this and some will be against it. And, that's what makes it an interesting issue.
Mm-hmm. But the one thing that was not included was how to handle any disruptive guests and that kind of thing. Is that what you were looking for, Commissioner Drummond?
Yeah, most of the operating plans that we've looked at before have included information about who would be in charge and what the expectations were of the guests, as well as issues about the physical upkeep of the property and the maintenance of the owner's properties within it.
And when we just got through discussing, this is anemic. And that's what I'm trying to get to. I can't see having this out there because we approved it tonight. I wouldn't even vote for it tonight because of that.
I
Only
think-
by the alderman's requirements, which I guess what I would go by, I don't know.
I do note, along with Alderman Nenning, as far as the map of the for and against, that everybody directly across the street is for. And one of the people next to it is for. And they'd be most directly affected by it.
Yeah, we're not really working on something that's all that bad. I mean, let's not become that concerned.
It's kind of getting to a point
It's
where
just fun times.
it's hard to differentiate between the neighborhood's feeling of things changing, because like Alderman Nenning said, I mean, people on Thorndale on the other end of the block, people on Kenwood, on Raleigh, they're not affected. This house right here is a TRP that we approved as well. So, you know, I think it's that change of the neighborhood, and I get it. If I lived over there, I would want it to stay the same, but at the same time, realizing that that whole area is going to be changing. You know, they're working on things in where the arena is. There's a plan in place that people are working on for this, the Stadium Entertainment District. So, I mean, there's so much going on, and it is a really nice residential area when you, I mean, as soon as you cross onto Shadow, I mean, it's just houses. I don't know, I have a hard time with this one because the owner seems, I mean, the person who owns it seems to be responsible. The house didn't scream at me when I walked past. And I think it's just that changing tide of that neighborhood. And if really it's going to be used for the majority for Packer games, I mean, it's crazy town over there anyway. So, I don't know, I have a hard time with this. And I don't know, you know, as far as what you guys are talking about with the, you know, this is just kind of what they're going to put on, you know, what their standards are for the people. I guess I'd be curious to see more of what you were talking about as far as unruly guests and everything.
Yeah, uniform.
And I hate to send this back and see it again, but maybe can we table it and ask for something more concrete? And I hate to have these people come back for a fourth time.
I think we're getting close enough that we don't want to bank it on this. I think, you know, staff has finally got something going on with this other stuff there. And,
But that will have to go to city council and on forward. That's going to be a period of time before we have a new set of ordinances, and then we have the issue about grandfathering or not that needs to be addressed in that process. I do want to acknowledge Alderman Menning's comments about the residentiality, and I think the comment about the owner being, running it like a business was intended to mean that it would be very well organized. And I was jumping on that because I know that has been one of the ongoing concerns about the residential issue and the residential character of the neighborhood. This is still pretty far from other TRPs. And when I look at the dots that our Director of Planning and Economic Development has put up for us, what I see is split. The immediate greens, but the reds very close around there, a few more as you, and a lot more as you get further away. And I think that has to do with everybody's feelings about the changes that are ongoing. It's a lot easier also to say what you're concerned about than to support something like this. So I'm split. I'm really sitting on the fence and waiting for one of you guys to say something that'll push me over one way or the other.
And I guess this was maybe scuttlebutt, but I remember someone saying it, I don't know if it was last month or the month before, that was it the house immediately to the west of it was used, it was already in use as a TRP without a TRP. So I just find it curious that they're red.
Airbnb stuff.
Yeah. That it was either the house right next door that's the red bubble, or it was the house that has no bubble.
Commissioner
we need a
Wisniewski?
few more bubbles on that map there, folks. Anyway, I just want to acknowledge what Lisa brought up about the house up there. And we approved that mainly because of the neighbors. I mean, it was all kind of remotely by itself. The neighbors were happy with it. They had the right supervision. Wow, where do you change?
Well, that's right on, because that person, the person across the street was going to be caring for the house.
Yeah.
This, we've got the person right next door that's going to be caring for the house.
That's why we're on the fence. We're not keeping a uniform decision-making, a wise decision-making process going, because we're missing what item 5 is bringing to us.
And I think that's one of the things that makes it really difficult, because we don't have concrete established rules that if it passes this, and this, it passes, or it is denied. And instead, we're basing it on opinions and on whether or not people like it. And in many neighborhoods, we have done that for different things. However, in other neighborhoods, we have not, and it depended on what the topic was. For example, if this was a home for developmentally disabled adults and they needed four beds, we would not consider the neighborhood at all. And it's definitely not, but it's also a house that presumably is very well kept up and will be very well kept up. And a lot of the houses along Lombardi have seen massive improvements over the last several years in their structure and their, the way they look. Yes,
Can I make a comment? So I disagree with the requirements. I think they're very stringent. And let's not forget this is a conditional use permit, so to kind of ground you a little bit, I think they've met the requirements basically stipulated in the ordinance. Now, you could add additional conditions if you chose to be even more restrictive, I guess. The petition is not really valid. It's a, I think, a cross-section of the neighborhood, but it doesn't play a strong role necessarily in your decision, except at the council, it could be a protest petition. This is simply a popularity. I mean, it may give you some indication, but again, it's not really a valid petition. But you have to kind of reason through that a little bit. But I think, again, looking at the conditional use permit, if there's conditions you want to apply, then I would apply those strongly. If you're concerned about anything that's deficient in the application or in the applicant.
Yes,
You
Commissioner?
just brought a valid point up to me is, to my mind, people will sign these things just to get you off the doorstep. So, what's the validity of it? Sometimes nothing.
Yeah, I'm not here to say it's not valid, I'm just saying,
Well,
we haven't had a
no,
chance to validate, the clerk hasn't looked at it, and it's not the process to oppose an actual zoning petition.
And as you can see, they'll sign them, if the neighbors sign them, and you go around and get signatures all day long doing that. Your neighbor over here signed, you signed. So, it's a hard way to make a decision. It really is. I wish you guys would quit doing this to us.
Try and change it.
Excuse me.
Yes, Commissioner Berman.
Am I missing something? Or does the recommendation of staff here not include point C that was on our previous, it was a condition, it was your comment about conditions that brought this to mind.
With the council sending it back, I wanted to leave it up to you to determine if you felt that was still
Okay.
necessary.
And that I would feel very strongly is necessary, and that was that the rental agreement shall include contact information for the owner and an additional representative, as well as rules to ensure compliance with city nuisance regulations, and shall be submitted to the planning department. That is not a part of the current written recommendation in front of us, and I think it should be added. And with that in mind, I would feel a lot more comfortable going forward with this at this time.
Thank you.
Is there a motion already?
There was not a motion.
But I guess the problem I see, right, the problem I see, I'm inclined to move it forward. But we already moved it forward with A, B, and C, and it came back to us. So
We now have additional information here, though, as far as where the petitions come from.
Oh, that's true.
And it is our prerogative to agree or disagree with it. It's our prerogative to agree or disagree with why it was sent back.
Well, no, I absolutely, but they'll just send it right back.
No, maybe not.
their
We've
problem.
already taken the
Okay.
petition into account.
I feel like we've put a lot of due diligence into this.
And you just pushed me over the line. I move that we approve this with the addition of the previously approved condition C that requires that the petitioners do present a rental agreement that includes the information, contact information, and rules to ensure compliance with city nuisance regulations. And they submit that to the planning department. So the same language that was there before.
Thank you. We have a motion.
I have a question. Is there how do we know if there have been police calls on these properties? I mean, somebody mentioned that one had been taken away at some point already on, is it Kenwood someone mentioned?
There was never a TRP on Kenwood.
Oh, okay. I thought someone mentioned that there had been one that had been taken away.
Parking violation.
One on Shadow, 1233 was the only one.
We include police calls in your packet.
It is in the packet.
Is
One
it?
parking violation.
Oh, right there, got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Do we
Well, I'm just
have-
saying that if we approve if it goes forward, what's the enforcement? Do the police know that these are TRPs, and when there's free nuisance calls, they kick it back to somebody, and?
The police enforce this just like any other residential property.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So we've got a motion?
Could,
Yes, Commissioner Wisbisky.
could we, I'm hung up on the fact of having two forms of TRPs. There's somehow, at this point in time, we can stop that, or we wait till we get to 5 and then make that retroactive and grandfather the other ones in, or what are we gonna do with that? Because next, we're gonna be spending time on number 5, which is gonna be contradictory to most of these, that maybe not all of them, but some of them that we approved before. Now, I would like to go back to those somehow. Maybe we discuss it at that point.
I don't
Maybe
know
we
that,
can't do that.
I don't think, I actually disagree with that. I think that it's fine to, and that's generally the way things are done in the city, is that this falls under what we've been doing.
Okay.
Number 5 hasn't gone through yet. It may not go through.
Okay.
And we just need to look at this as what's been done.
And
Plus whatever.
ultimately, the city council is going to vote on our recommendation and, whatever color that falls. or which is.
I am presuming in making the motion, which is still, is about to die for lack of a second, that the information that Kevin Bonk has just put together for us would also be presented to the city council, so that they would know what the distribution was of the pros and cons.
That's a great idea.
I will second it.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. And this will go to city council on what date? August 16th. Thank you.
I kind of thought we were doing number 5 first. But 5 would need 3 readings. 5 is going to take at least 3 readings.
Okay, item number 2. Discussion and action on the request to authorize a conditional use permit for 3 two-family dwellings located along East Walnut Street and Baird Street, submitted by Green Bay Habitat for Humanity property owners.
Thank you. So this request is along North Baird and then Walnut Street. So we're orienting you a little bit. East High School is right here, Joann's Park is back here. These are some vacant properties that the city had previously owned that Habitat for Humanity has purchased. This has since been torn down, so all these are vacant at this point. It does not include the corner lot, which is important to note. That is maintained by the city and I believe will be maintained as green space. It's a pretty small lot. So what we're looking at here is a comprehensive plan that calls for low-density residential. The zoning is office residential, and within the office residential district, you have to get a CUP for approval of a two-family home. So the concept here is a little different as compared to a duplex. They're twin homes or townhomes. So as you can see here, pretty narrow lots, 0 lot lines within, so it'll be 3 separate buildings, 6 total units, 6 total lots. So they are going to be going through a subdivision plat to get these all divided. Each unit has its own driveway, its own garage, front porch, backyard. All of them are 2 stories. and all of them have the same type of architectural features, which is pretty prevalent within the neighborhood that exists there. Most of the the neighborhood has single-family or two-family homes, with the exception of the park and the high school that are nearby. So looking at the map, it's a pretty good buffer area between the single-family homes, some rentals that are across the street, these twin homes on the buffer between Barrett Street, which is fairly busy, and then the park and the school. The petitioner is looking to do the twin home concept because they can put more families in homes versus the standard single family, which you'd have to have the side yards, so we won't be able to create as many lots. So with this, we can take 5 lots, turn it into 6, and house 6 families total. So with that, we are recommending approval, subject to having the subdivision plat approved before they can pull their building permits, which is standard procedure, and then also compliance with all their codes not covered under the CUP.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Brimmer.
I do have one. In the staff report, you say that there are no development standards. I'm not sure what that means.
So typically when we're looking at doing a conditional use permit for a duplex, it's usually in the R1 or R2 district, or usually R1 that we're doing. Those have development standards, so it's a list within our code that says that they have to meet these specific things. Within the office residential, we don't have those standards, but usually they're just, what's the use, is it compatible with the neighbors, does it look like the neighbors' houses, those sorts of things. So just wanted to point that out in case we were looking for those standards.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody here to speak on it?
Yes, there is.
I move
You have the petition here.
yes, and we need to open.
Oh, that's it. Thank you.
Second? Suspend the rules, that's the language I'm looking for. I'm having trouble with language tonight, okay.
Thank you both. Cora, Dr. Hyde.
Hello.
Hi.
Cora Hall Tofterheide, representing Greater Green Bay Habitat for Humanity. Home address 3962 Presque Isle Court, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm here to, again, show you what our concept is for this year. I also have with me our construction coordinator for any technical questions, and also the family selection committee. This is basically a rendering of what we plan to do there. We've been working closely with not only Cheryl and the Neighbor Works Department there, but also Stephanie and her team, Paul Newmeyer. We've met with them a number of times. Also met with the city alderman and the Neighbor Works or the Neighborhood Association back in February and March when we went through the redevelopment authority. So that's our plan. These would be our 99th through our 104th home. Plan on opening, if this all is approved and voted on by everybody else, we look at groundbreaking September, October with an opening of June of 2017. And again, it's not providing a handout, it's a hand up to 6 deserving families of low to moderate income that are screened through 3 vetting processes through Habitat.
Will the families own them?
They will be owned, yes, they were fully owned. What we provide is an interest-free mortgage, no profit interest-free mortgage.
Commissioner Wisniewski?
I'd like to commend you on everything that you're doing. It's been fantastic. You guys do a heck of a job providing homes in a nice, neat, clean manner. I had the opportunity to actually build one of them.
Oh, wonderful.
Worked on one of the staff, or actually the crew, basically. And I think it's been a great success. And thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you. It's because of volunteers such as yourself. We wouldn't succeed without that. They're the foundation of our organization, and we will continue.
Short story to tell you, but I went to work on it, and my wife says, keep your feet on the ground. Guess what I ended up doing? Putting roof rafters.
You didn't listen to her. It's not good. I won't tell her. Don't put that in the notes, please.
How you define ground?
I'd move to approve the conditional use.
I second that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone talk against? Or anyone else who wants to
Well, I
speak?
think we have to return to regular order of business.
Don't we have to,
first.
does there anyone else who wants to speak?
Make the motion return.
There's no one else here who wants to speak.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And aye. Thanks for coming in. They look really good. They'll fit in nicely.
Yeah.
And these will go to city council on August 16th as well, I believe.
Maybe just repeat my block. I can see the back of their house from my kitchen.
Okay, item number 3, discussion and action on the request to rezone 1022 9th Street from low-density residential to office residential submitted by Craig Salentine. property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to rezone a parcel of property along 9th Street, currently zoned low-density residential R1 to office residential OR. The property is highlighted in red. It's a small lot, inside the corner lot at 1022 9th. This is 9th Street running through here, Gross and Wirtz Avenue. This is the Southwest Branch Library just down the road a little bit. This is mainly a low-density residential neighborhood, although there is some kind of light commercial business uses along this portion of 9th Street. City's comprehensive plan recommends medium to high-intensity retail office or housing in this particular area. This property happens to be just kind of outside of that general boundary, but again, the comprehensive plan lines are typically not always on lot lines. They tend to kind of wander a little bit, so the staff is supporting this request with the idea that this is kind of can be squared off at the corner at Wirtz Avenue and 9th. This is a map of the current zoning showing the office residential to the west. To the south, we actually have some C2 zoning, which is an auto repair facility, and C2 on the other corners. So this really is kind of a last piece of property that's kind of left out a little bit, provide some balance with the rest of that block to OR. I believe the property owner is planning on a live-work unit in that particular site, and live-work would be a permitted use in the office residential district. We have notified affected property owners. There is one letter of objection that's attached within your packet. And then today I got 2 emails I've also put before you for your consideration. But our recommendation tonight is approval of the request from OR, or from R1 to OR.
Thank you. What kind of business is it?
I'll let the applicant speak better to that
Okay.
question, sure.
Are there
That
questions?
wasn't you had my question.
Okay. Commissioner Brennan?
And some of the other questions that were asked in the first letter of concern that you had, if the business venture did not work out, would the property be reverting back to low-density residential?
No.
It remains. This is not like our TRPs, which go with the
Yep.
applicant, it goes with the property.
This is black and white, yes.
Okay. And are there laws on upgrading the property to meet business standards?
There might be. It depends on what the applicant proposes. It's currently a residential facility. If it changes certain threshold levels, it may require commercial building plan review and possibly site plan review too, if there's some increased intensity in the building.
So it has to do with the live, work, and how much of it is living and how much of it is working?
Right.
Okay. And I'm assuming that that also would be responsive to the concern that one of the more recent commenters expressed about parking considerations. If there's a higher intensity of use here, do we have a mechanism to deal with traffic flow and parking?
Well, parking we can deal with through the zoning code, certainly. So if it's a single-family home, there's a couple parking spaces that are required. Typically on a live-work, that's a low-density type of operation, so I wouldn't expect a lot of customers coming. It's more of a one-on-one situation, I guess, so. But we may have to address that through a site plan, again, depending on what the applicant.
The work is.
What's proposed.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, and that I would assume would also have to do with issues about traffic flow. I think the concern being expressed here was on-street parking and narrowing the passageway for cars, as well as then traffic flow, and particularly concern about children crossing on the way to school.
And those tend to be more enforcement issues. I don't know if this is going to have a huge impact on that necessarily. It may create more, or slightly more density, but it's an arterial street, basically. There are current parking regulations in place, so this site is somewhat affiliated with Wellness Center to the west, so they do have some parking challenges that probably have to work together on possibly sharing some parking.
But that would be something that the planning department would address as you work on the site plan and with the information about the specific kind of work that's going to be done out of the home here.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Paul? Thank you. Do we have people here who would like to speak? We need someone to suspend the rules.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Thank you. I see the petitioner is here, Craig Salentine. Would you like to speak? Sure. Okay, come up, please.
Hello. I purchased the house to be able to live there and also have a roommate. I worked that out with the bank and they agreed. With working with the city, I am able to, if I have that roommate, they're able to work out of there, which would allow them to do that moving into an office residential. Also myself, I'm a certified hypnotherapist and life coach, so that'll allow me to do my work there. I also work in the wellness center, but that allows me to live and work in the house also.
Okay. We had received some photos in our packet, and they showed things like horse trailers. I wonder if you could tell us about those.
Sure. The Wellness Center had an expo for the veterans. They brought in 2 displays. One is 135 desert vets that had died during service. That was brought in. We had a parade and put in the farmhouse, which is right next to me. We also brought in 379 boots of those that had died, either, I'm not sure if it's in service, but died outside of service. So it was a way of honoring them during the 4th of July weekend. And this extended, since I own the house, we did have vendors and we had a kids petting zoo that came in. It was on my side of the house, and which I approved and was happy to allow to bring in more interest in people in the neighborhood for their families to enjoy. So it's not like I don't have a barn behind my house or anything. I don't have any horses, cats, dogs,
You won't
nothing.
be bringing horses every week? Or
Right,
doing
no,
horse
it was
shows
just
or
during
anything like
the,
that?
it was 3 days of an expo. It was on the 2nd, the 4th, and the 9th, just to honor the desert vets. Something for the kids to do. There were face painting, games for them to do, which was on also behind the house. So we thought it was a great opportunity for the neighborhood to enjoy, you know. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, Commissioner Wisniewski.
Do you plan on having this type of activities in the future too?
Future activities?
Similar to this.
Similar to this?
They paint a horrible picture of what you did there, basically, and I'm very concerned about that. I don't know if you stuff like that. Like the trailer, like the booths and stuff like that, but.
That carried the horses and the animals, so.
You plan on doing that in the future?
I guess I wouldn't do it again. No.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do you have particular parking needs with the business that you would operate out of?
Since the roommate will be living there and also providing service themselves, so that would provide me and that other person parking spot. For the clients that come in, so I believe there's, on the other side of the street, we can also park, besides the wellness center's parking lot, and also on the left side of my house, we can also park. So there are some parking spots, so you can only have one client every hour, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And is one client every hour at a max also what your roommate would be expecting?
So that then if there's possible, like 2 clients.
Yeah, so we're not talking about a retail business where you have
Correct.
5 or 6 people coming in at one time.
Correct.
Because the concern here is with the street parking and the possible
Right.
congestion there.
Um,
You would be likely to be adding at a max 3, at any one moment, maybe 3 cars parked at the same time as people
Very
going
possible.
from one thing to
Mhm.
another.
Mhm.
And that would be a maximum.
Okay, which I talked with Paul about, just making sure I understood what I can do and can't do. And He had mentioned then if I went into retail, that's where I would do like the live and work option. So we wanted to go this route just to see how things go, and I know that there were some concerns. It was an activity, a way of showing the vets that, you know, we want to honor them. Thought it would be great.
So it may possibly become retail at some point.
If it went to there, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Right now, it is at the wellness center, so there isn't an issue. But with things that are occurring within the neighborhood, should I go that route so that way I'm covered, you know, if I do decide? But not at this time.
Okay, great, thank you.
So you don't have a farmhouse there? I've seen wood chips, disorganized plants, and a chicken coop.
Yep, so the wellness center, the PCM Bank came to her about purchasing that house. That gave her the opportunity to expand and do kids camp there. So in that kids camp, they learn 8 dimensions of wellness, which allows them to learn about gardening. There's no grass, so it's wood chips, but it's gardens all the way around. There's absolutely no grass at all. And there are 4 chickens in the back, so also from having those chickens, they learn what the chickens get fed. They cook with the eggs. They learn from the gardening how to do their business, you know, getting worms, starting their own little business. And PCM gave them an opportunity to, you know, get $25 to open an account to start their business. So there was a lot of stuff that went into that whole expo that we thought was going to be a great thing for the neighborhood to appreciate.
But all those things are there permanently, the chicken coop and everything? Okay.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
your chicken license and 4
Yeah.
are allowed in the city and so?
Yeah, but that, I don't know.
Those aren't his.
Oh,
Those aren't
okay.
mine.
Oh, all right.
So I have,
You're
yeah,
talking about the wellness, what is that, the wellness center, right?
yes, yeah.
I'll bring you up later.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
Great, thanks.
Melanie,
I'm
Tatina?
here to oppose, but I'm not speaking.
Thank you. And Greg Delarwell.
I'm here. So, my biggest thing is that, you know, they may have had great intentions with the fair, and we now know more information. And obviously, they had to do some advertising to get people involved with the activity, but the surrounding neighbors had no clue, and it was crazy land for them. So, I just want to make sure it's going to be a good neighbor relationship and respectful of treating your neighbor like you want to be treated. So that's my biggest contention on this.
Rebecca Klutzka?
Hello. I live at 1008 9th Street, my husband and I, and we've lived there for 13 years. We are not the homeowners, we are renters, but we take care of it as our home. And the weekends that they did have their function going on was very disruptive. We actually left because we had people parking up to our driveway. We had cars coming in and out. Both sides of the street were parked out. If there was an emergency where the fire truck had to come down, they did have a fire truck that was there. And at first I thought it was someone coming to go to a home because they came, you know, with the sirens. And then I realized it was for their function. But they had to go through there very slowly due to all the parking. It was just very congested. And again, we had to leave our home for the day. And then the next morning we left as well because it was again. And then the following weekend again. From talking to some of the other neighbors, they too are just, you know, very upset how we were not given any personal notification of these events that were going on. It's a residential area. Yes, there are a few of these buildings, commercial buildings there, but the majority are residents. We have children, grandchildren. We want them to be okay. And when there are these functions, there's no way that they can just park on their properties. They have to park on the city streets. And it was just horrible. And their tent, I understand, what they were doing was good with the vets. I commend people for doing that, but they really needed to take the time to let the neighbors know what was going on. And for someone to purchase a property and within a few short months now want to have it rezoned. My feeling is that this was their intent from the very beginning to expand their little community there. And I want to stay in this area. We love our house. We're even thinking of buying the house. And to keep people in the community that respect their homes, that respect their neighbors, is very important. And I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yes.
Would you like to speak?
My name is Jeff Tatton, and I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you. I live at 1019 9th Street. My wife and I have lived there for 27 years, and we've raised a son who's 25 years old. I looked at, if you could please put the picture of the yellow up with all the properties. I think I can get us down to what I mean.
This one?
Yes. I live at this property right here. We have a neighbor that this property has been changing all the time as time has gone on. She was one of the people that had issued a letter for you guys to look at. They're wonderful neighbors. When we first purchased the property, this property, this property, and this property, this property, and this property were business. And I purchased the property knowing that there is a business at those properties. I felt that the neighborhood is very well balanced. It's great to walk down to Mason Street, down to the Red Owl to get something. The library is a fine asset. The properties that are on the corners, I think in the past, the reasoning that it was zoned the way it was so each neighborhood could have some small businesses to work with. Since they reissued or they rezoned the property next to the corner property, we found that the parking in this area has gone from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. It's very difficult to get out of all of the driveways. There's cars parked. There's no parking on this side of the street because the bus stop is there, so you can't park there. This side of the street, there's a gas station here with there's no parking there. So in front of my house and in front of this house, there's parking. I have a driveway on Works, so I don't, but they're parking up and down Works, and it's difficult for me to get out of my driveway because of how narrow the road is. What's happened is you've allowed the property next door to the one that got rezoned, or is asking to be rezoned, allowed them to rezone. Now we have the next property to be rezoned. I don't see why the person that bought the property would have bought the property to make it a business when this property right here that's already zoned is for sale. I don't understand why you would purchase a property and ask for that property to be rezoned after you've purchased it. I guess I'm a businessman. I own a business on the east side of town. And I wouldn't have purchased the property that I'm in unless I already had the ability to have it zoned as that business. I read Facebook. I get the Marquette Park paper. What the information that came across those two mediums were there's going to be meeting spaces in the farmhouse and in the wellness center and in this new property that you can rent, that has 10 to 8 people per meeting room to go into. There isn't enough parking space there at present to start to bring more parking in, more vehicles in. 9th Street is a main artery for emergency vehicles, for plowing. The fire truck, I would say on a regular basis, at least once or twice a week, the fire truck goes down that street at 60 miles an hour. And I would say that the police cars run down that street at excess of 70 on a regular basis. To add more congestion in that area, I think is wrong. I don't think there's a plan in place for parking. The next problem I have is I've gone through the changes in ownership of almost every property in that vicinity. And you cannot guarantee who's going to move into that next property because you've changed it from a residential to something more. I believe it's office, residential. What's the next person going to turn it into? The setbacks for the buildings, the property lines can all change. I deal in code with what I do, and I went through the chapter 13, and I read the difference between a residential property, and a commercial or this OR property that is being proposed. I believe that if you do approve it with the events that happened in the past and the addition to what they want to do, I think you really need to look at this as being more of an event center or a civic center. And if you look at that, there isn't any room. I would ask that the city reconsider when they allow an event like that. A block away is Marquette Park. That event should have been placed in the park. That would have been a perfect venue for the event that occurred across the street. I won't comment on that event. That event was just atrocious. I've never been approached by any of those business owners. They've never came to my house, pounded on my door, and said anything of what they were going to do or want to do or what they are doing right now. All I'm told is don't you get the Marquette paper and don't you read Facebook. I didn't up to that point, and then I started to. And then when I discovered what was going on, I was very concerned. I've contacted and I've been in contact several times with the supervisor for inspections and the inspector herself. Donna Rosenthal was the last one I spoke with. She's gone out there and she's asked questions and what have you. I realize that you are allowed to put bark down and what have you. It looks horrible. But I also ask the questions is, the weeds are this high and there's ordinances that say you have to keep the weeds down to about 12 inches. I would ask that that be looked at. I believe that that is a poor use of that property. I believe that property, I've watched a couple of families raised in that property. I know the building itself. There is no way that you can bring people in that building and have handicap access. There is 1,200 square feet to that building. According to the zone ordinances here, that comes to 4.5 vehicles that need to be parked in that facility. There's no way you're going to get that much concrete on that property. I design gas stations. I know what it takes to park a car. It won't fit on that property. I thank you for listening. I would tell you that the other part of it is the emotion that I have and the fact that we watched 9th Street. They had issues with the children crossing traffic to get to the schools, to get to the parks. Now you have a business that's running now from the hours of 9 in the morning till 9 at night. We haven't experienced what's going to happen once the schools get going and there's kids coming and going for school. There was a big thing in the paper a few years back. We had to have people on the street to block traffic because it's that congested. Now you've added these cars on the street that you can't see around. the house off the other corner of Words from me, that gentleman that was there. Well, there was a hedge that they kept cut down. And just about every poor little old lady in the neighborhood asked him to cut that hedge down so they could see to get out. Now they can't even see because of the cars are parked there on a regular basis. And if we talk about having two people operating one business out of that building and every hour having two patients, there's the two people that are doing the work, the two patients that are there, and then the two patients in waiting. That gives, I count 6. That's not including all the people who would be inquiring into, can I get services? I think this business is a little larger than what is being represented. I'm not saying they lie, but all the information that has been out on media says they've misrepresented what they're asking for. So I would hope that you would consider these things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Boomer.
I must beg pardon that I forgot to do a drive-by as I normally do for things that are not conditional use permits. So I wonder if you would be so good as to go over the map there and point to where the wellness center is, where the farmhouse is, and where Marquette Park is.
The wellness center is in the property right here. Or I'm sorry, the farmhouse is in the property right here.
The yellow.
And
wellness center.
And the wellness center is here.
Okay.
This corner is an apartment building, and underneath they have, it used to be a upholstery shop, and now it's a beauty shop and a dog grooming. Marquette Park is right here.
Okay, thank you.
That's 1 block away.
I appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
Are there other questions?
Is the farmhouse residential right now, or what is?
You rezoned, in my opinion, what I understood was it was rezoned exactly what they're asking this one to be rezoned. R1/.
So this is the zoning map you guys have just put up.
2013, we rezoned it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
What's all the red?
That's highway commercial, C2.
Are there other questions?
I don't understand this farmhouse thing.
If I wanted to live by a farm, I would have moved to the country. It really is exactly as a farmhouse is. All the complaints that people have that live out on by farms is the same complaints that I have living in town. I live in the city for a reason. I love living in Green Bay. I've lived here. I've been one of the people that have said this neighborhood needs to stay a neighborhood. The neighbors here are wonderful. It changes. I can deal with the changes. Because there's ordinances and there's laws that help us. The nuisance, we take care of the nuisance. We make the phone calls that this property needs to be repaired. We make the phone call that says they need to cut their grass. I've even gone over to neighbors and cut grass when I've known that they've been ill or what have you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Karen Stair. Store?
Store.
Thank you.
First, I need to clear up all the farmhouse and all this other stuff. I own the farmhouse and the wellness center. We've been there 5 years. The wellness center has been there 5, the farmhouse 2. Okay? And yes, the farmhouse at one time was residential and we rezoned. And that's how it got to be the farmhouse, because we do group and one-on-one for children. We actually have the gardens are all around there, and yes, it does. There's plants, there's food. It's sort of like a community. The kids stop, they pick strawberries, they pick vegetables, whatever. It's sometimes they just stop and say, well, what do you have today? Or else they'll just stop. My garage is always open. They go in the back and they look at my 4 chickens, which I do have a permit for. And probably my chickens are cleaner than a lot of people's homes, because I clean them every day. So I do have, and they go and they pick the eggs, whatever they want to do. That's sort of like almost a little place for them to stop and visit and actually get some education. So yes, I do have a farmhouse. Now, when Craig got involved with the expo that I did for the desert veterans, yes, I went to him and I said, we need an area where there's shade, because I wanted to have the petting zoo for the kids, because we work with kids. So I said, could we use your area, because he's got a real big tree right by the roadside by Wirtz, next to his garage. And my friend has a petting zoo. She goes all over with her petting zoo. And she's got the little miniature horses, as you saw pictures. And I had asked her if she could come so the kids could have something to do besides the games and all the other things that were going on for the adults, because we had all these other ceremonies for the veterans. And they did. And that's why those pets were on Craig Solentine's property, because I had asked him for that, if we could use his area, because the backyard also and his side is more shaded and it's nicer for kids. Because all we had in our parking lot, we had the tent. Well, that's not a place for kids to be playing where we were having ceremonies with the veterans. So that's how that got involved with the animals, and usually I do one big event a year. And this one so happened to be one that I only could get the memorials from the high ground in Neilsville that week. That was the only time I could get it. And naturally, the 4th of July is a busy time for everybody, but that was my only window that they would allow it to go out. So I had to take that. And that's when I had all those activities going on throughout that period. And that's how his home got involved with the animals and the activity. Otherwise, that's what I do once a year. And what it was, as far as they have the Marquette Park Association meeting, and then that's how we tell people in the community. And I sent it out, it was in Norwood's paper, and it was also in Colburn Park, in their neighborhood letter too, that this was going on, because we actually started in the Colburn Park area with being at the church. We started at Calvary Church because they actually came in with a parade, and that's how they saw the fire trucks, and that's why they knew there was this activity. But it was in all of that paper. I didn't know what else to do, because it affected more than just our little corner. It affected like the 3 communities. And that's why we wanted to let them all know that this was going on. So really, that whole situation with the animals was my fault. And I apologize, but I did fill out my special event, process that I had to go through. So it was known by the community and, the councils and all that, because they were there, So I just want to say that was my fault, how that all got put on his property. Do you have any questions for me? Yes?
Commissioner, is the farmhouse your residence?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you own the
Wellness center and the farmhouse.
And the farmhouse,
Right.
okay. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner Wisniewski.
You just have chickens, no other animals staying there?
No.
Okay.
No. We have our 4 chickens, and it's for education. But we do eat the eggs too. I will say we do eat eggs.
And more. And I was just curious, is the lady who comes with the horses, is that a pony, and is that the same one she takes over to Aurora Hospital?
I don't
With the
know.
patients?
I don't know.
Okay.
She's got 3 little ones, and they're very, very
Probably.
friendly.
I was just curious.
And the kids do hand painting on them, finger painting. So, because they're very good with children. But there were more than as you can see, there were other pets that came along too. So, yes? Oh, sorry.
I think it's unfortunate that residents around there didn't know what was going to take place any more than they did. And but I at this point, I'm not trying to reach a conclusion here based on what happened during that special event and that. But what about the parking situation on a daily basis? Is there a parking problem on a daily basis?
On our businesses, our 2 that we run, I have the large parking space. It's a parking lot.
How many cars, off-street cars?
Oh, 10.
And it
At one
usually
time.
accommodates your parking needs. for the-
And then I park my car actually in the driveway in between the two buildings.
Thank you.
Will you be sharing your parking with the house on the corner then? If this
It
goes-
hasn't been discussed
Okay.
because there is Wirtz Street, which is the other side street, that would be there too. And I think, isn't yours a 2-car driveway, 2.5-car garage? Yeah, he's got a 2.5-car driveway anyway.
I need you to talk to us.
Okay, I had to think what it was. I wasn't sure.
And how many of your spots are usually filled typically during the day, during each hour?
I would say, because of the 4 therapists, I would say we have between 4 and 6 are filled.
Okay, and what happens if there is a meeting in a meeting room? With the
They use
traffic?
that. They
Is
use-
there enough parking in your lot for
Yeah,
a meeting?
once in a while, only on Tuesday nights, there are a couple that do park across the street, and that's after hours because we have a free family counseling group that comes in. And that's really our only night where we have more people than usual, Tuesday nights. Any other questions?
I do just want to follow up. I appreciate very much that you paid attention to what the limitations and expectations are as far as getting the necessary permit for your special event.
Right.
And making sure that that was promoted in the neighborhood association newsletters. Are you likely to take from this meeting a sense that for an event like this, there ought to be more personal outreach to the immediate neighbors?
Very possibly. It's just that it got so overwhelming for my staff group
Yeah.
that we're organizing. It got larger and larger and larger because more people wanted to be involved with the Desert Veteran Project. And all of a sudden, it started out with just this little, and all of a sudden, it was like boom.
Okay.
I was overwhelmed.
I'm talking into the future.
Right. Oh, yes.
That seems to be a very major problem that has occurred here as a result of people who may or may not have read the newsletters, and may or may not have noticed what the impact was going to be on
That's
them,
true.
especially as you saw that it was going to be, that it was getting overwhelming.
Right,
That there were
right.
going to be a lot of people that would be a time to reach out to your near neighbors and say, got to give you some forewarning here.
Well, I know there were 2 of them that I see on a regular basis that knew, But other than that, like I said, that's my fault. I'll have to work on that.
Thank you. Are there other
Anything
questions?
else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Do we have a motion to return?
I do want to ask before we return to regular order of business, may I address a question to the applicant?
Sure.
Okay, if I could, sir. My one hesitation is your reference to the possibility of further retail in the future. What are your future plans? What are you seeing out there?
Right now, I think just doing the hypnotherapy and the life coaching is, I work for hospice during the daytime, so this gives me an opportunity to still have an income until I start building it. So it's not like I have a lot of clientele right now. So it would be nice to have an area that I can control. It's nice to be over at the wellness center too, but to have something quiet. So when you are doing hypnotherapy, you have complete quiet.
So it's in home.
Home.
And the hypnotherapy then you do as a part of the hospice work?
It can,
Understanding that
but
correctly? You said you work for hospice.
I work for
during the
hospice. They're going to be
daytime.
separate.
Okay.
It has that potential, but hospice doesn't always look at those as possible options to give their
Understood.
patients.
So what I'm trying to understand
sure.
is when you would be operating as a hypnotherapist in your work-live environment. So you work at hospice during the day somewhere else.
Right.
So these would be evening clients who would come
Correct.
to you and probably weekend.
Yep,
And then your housemate would have people coming probably during the day?
during the
or-
day.
Okay,
Yep.
during the day.
Yep, during the day.
Okay, that allows me to get a sense
Sure.
of the traffic. Thank you very
Sure.
much.
Well, sure, turn to auto business.
You have Alderman Weary, thank you.
Thank you. Could I just point something out on the board? Thanks. My first 10 years as alderman, my district went up to here. So this area used to be in my district, and when we redistricted, because Jerry had so many people in the district, he had to share with us. So then the borders went down here. So now this would be District 8, and then that's District 9. So it's technically in Guy Zimmer's district, but it also affects my district too. I just wanted to point out that.
Thank you.
The borders. And you've heard from some people who live across the street already, and I have too. And I'm glad they told me about the issues. Karen runs a great place. She's a wonderful lady, energetic, runs a great place. I just want to start with that. However, we have started to see over the last couple of years parking issues, which have been mentioned, especially when there's an event. You know, that's a big concern. Is there enough parking? And then there's just the general, like we've seen with the TRPs, there's that feeling of increased commercial in a residential area, and is that changing the flavor of the area? And then thirdly, of course, is just maybe trying to communicate more with the residents. I think that's going to be very important. That's what I've heard. You've heard it already. I'm concerned really about the parking and not trying to fit too much into a small area and forcing the parking really into the surrounding area. So, I don't know if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Return to regular order.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson?
I guess one of my concerns is that what's been going on at the Wellness Center is now flavoring what's happening with this property. Because those were events that were put on. The communication, it needs to be communicated with the neighborhood better, in my opinion. I think that if you let neighbors know ahead of time what to expect, I think that then they're more likely to, I guess, be okay with it even a little bit. And I totally understand the parking situation. I live 3 blocks from the Main Street Bridge on the west side, and tall ships, fireworks, everything. They park right up to the edge of your driveway or even over it a little bit, and it drives me crazy, and I totally understand that. I think with the current property that we're looking at, that corner piece, which is not part of the Wellness Center or the farmhouse, can parking be contained on that lot? If it's a 2-wide driveway? I mean, I guess once we rezone it, it's rezoned, and then we really can't do anything about it.
It's rezoned and they're on their way. The site is very small, there's really challenges for expanding anything there. I think there's sufficient parking on the site for a live-work unit, but I don't think you can add any more parking spaces without a variance or something like that. It's a very small lot. As far as the retail component, that would require a conditional use permit.
Oh,
So there could be some incidental sales possibly, but if it's a primary use, that would be conditional use approval back for the planning commission.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Parking is legally allowed on both sides of Words, right?
Yes.
So we're talking about parking that has occurred illegally, not illegally.
Correct. It's permitted on Words. It's also permitted on Gross with some limitations off the corner. And then the other side of Words as well, I believe.
If this was, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If this, for example, was an accountant working out of their home, would they need to come here at all?
No. They could be considered a home-based occupation under those standards. When we were working with the applicant, we were kind of going back and forth. There could have been another option in this case to leave it a residential property, do a conditional use. By rezoning, it makes the zoning consistent with the existing zoning. makes this live work a permitted use. So from that perspective, that seemed to make some sense, and that's what the applicant chose to apply, based on our recommendation.
And Vice Chair?
This area is obviously by and large a residential area. The businesses on the corner over there are remnants of a pre-World War II era when neighborhood groceries were common, neighborhood barber shops. That era is obviously gone, and these are strictly remnants of that era. I do not feel that we should be expanding it. I think in time it will more than likely dissipate and become residential or something. But I do not feel we should be expanding this business into the residential area. I think the house was purchased as a residential, as residence, and I think it should remain so. That's my feeling.
Commissioner Bremer?
I wonder if you'd be so good as to put up the zoning map again? Because I think this supports the point that Commissioner Gilbert just made. We're dealing with a property here that not only would continue an OR district along 9th, but also establish an OR corner that runs along Wirtz. And I share the same concern. I think this is an expansion of non-residential uses in an area where we already have some real serious problems for the residents.
Yes, Commissioner.
I agree. I can see the concept. I know exactly what was going on, the way this was originally set up for the corner grocery store. And around it, of course, a community of residential homes. I think to head in that direction is almost archaic. And I think this is meant to be a residential area, and I feel the same way that I would not be happy with committing to adding additional commercial property to that area. And I think that the old way of doing things is kind of gone, and it's kind of ready time to approve it. And when you hear somebody who's so passionate about their house and they've been living there forever, almost breaks your heart to see that they're trying to live with the past, and hope that they could keep what they have. And I think the gentleman that spoke on that part did an excellent job. And, for lack of anything else, I would make the motion to disapprove this.
Second.
We've got a motion and second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. What are the next steps on this one? Are there next steps?
Goes to council next.
On August 16th. Item number 4, discussion and action on the request to authorize a conditional use permit for minor auto repair in a general commercial district at 1783 Main Street, submitted by, is it Marco Rodriguez?
Correct.
Thank you.
So we have a CUP request for another minor auto repair facility. This is Main Street as you head south. There's a significant grade change from the west portion to the east portion of the property. The area is called for commercial in the comprehensive plan. As you can see by the right, it is one of the main corridors in the city. The zoning map matches similarly. We have some C2 highway commercial and some C1 general commercial to the south, and then for the most part to the north, south, east, and west, we have more C1 general commercial zoning. This is a site plan of the proposed property. We have Main Street here along the bottom. I think it's showing Street here. Right now they show 2 entrances, one from Main, one from here. The building would be accessed from here. They have an overhead door to get into the facility. In the staff's opinion, the corridor has a lot of automobile-related and automobile-type uses. We have gas stations, we have the auto parts store just to the north of it. So this is a complementary use with other uses in the area. That being said, we do recommend approval subject to a number of conditions. Compliance with the standard site plan review and permitting process. All vehicle parts should be stored inside of the enclosed building. No expansion of the conditional use without prior approval of the Plan Commission and Council. They have not done a stormwater management plan that is usually done as part of the site plan process. There could be some unique challenges with the facility of stormwater management, so we would want to see a approved stormwater plan by Public Works. Staff is also recommending closing the Main Street entrance because it is a more high traffic generating street and using solely the other access point. So we would want to see that curb cut closed, brought back up to city standards. And finally, that repairs be made to the building for any chipping, peeling, paint, kind of to repaint, surface the outside of the building to bring it up a nice, consistent looking facade. At the time of this hearing, we had not received anyone either for or against this petition.
Thank you. Other questions?
I just have one, I'm just looking for, oh, yes, there's reference to an auto repair facility operating at the Main Street address.
So
Is it
yes,
currently
they
operating
were
without-
cited for beginning operation.
Okay,
I believe they have ceased operation in the meantime. We're going through this process.
okay. And then the curb cut is where?
Main Street, so it's, there was a house previously on the front of this site.
Okay,
The house was torn down, but the curb cut remains. So the house was here,
okay,
and the curb cut remains. This is the curb cut we would want to see closed along Main Street.
thank you. So they would be entering the property from Shoal Street?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, if memory serves, wasn't this site,
The second.
didn't this have come up for us previously, a few years ago?
Yes.
For the same purpose?
It did, yes, and it was denied eventually, yes.
Okay.
Supported by, I think, by the commission, but denied by the council.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh.
Thank you for remembering. Be the first. Commissioner Wojciechowski.
Yes, it's deja vu. At that point in time, the house was, well, he's still not throwing the house in there. In fact, it looks to me like, isn't there a tavern right there in that corner?
The house was
Opposite, okay.
opposite corner. Yeah, the house was removed that was on this corner.
Oh, okay, so the tavern.
That's the bar.
Yeah, there's a bar to the north of it, and then there's also a sports bar to the east of it.
Okay. This was actually disapproved, and it has been operating for quite some time. I don't know how many years it is, 2 or 3 times through 2 or 3 years. And now you're saying he wants to make it legal because they caught him? or-
I don't know if this is the same
Yes, it
applicant
is.
as previous
Yes, it
visit. I know he's had, I know,
remember sitting here and going through that, and I remember the alderman was dead set against it, and I can't believe he hasn't made a comment yet. Maybe they missed it, but,
I reached out to the alderman and did not hear back.
yeah. On his behalf, though, I will say that I have been watching that property because I knew we had disapproved it. And I see him working there ever since we did that, almost the following day. And I go to the grocery store there quite often. But he does keep a clean shop, and looks like he's fairly busy, and you hate like heck to get anybody's livelihood taken away from him, but in the same token, I'm kind of appalled by the fact that he just kept on operating, and how long did it take us to catch him? A couple of years?
I know the zoning inspector has been involved with this property for a while.
And nothing with the alderman?
I have not heard from the alderman.
Wow. All right, thank you.
To Commissioner Wojciechowski's points, the zoning inspector has been involved with this. The alderman has asked us about this property, and we have followed through housing and zoning inspection. And I think we got to a point that the applicant was notified that he needed to go through this process of obtaining the CUP, and still hadn't, so it got to a point where basically we had to say cease and desist until this process, which is why this is before you here tonight.
Okay, and then the big change is apparently he's absorbed that house that's on that property?
The house has been removed.
Okay, all right.
That is the area where they're proposing parking now.
Yeah, he didn't have any parking. Yeah, in fact, he had to park inside the building and just did park on the street there quite a bit too, so.
Are there people here who want to speak on this?
They're not written down, but the applicant is here.
All right, that's all I had.
Would you like to speak on this, Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes. I move to
Not
suspend.
yet. Okay, thank you.
Move to suspend the rules.
We have another
Second.
question here.
Oh.
We have another question here first. Thank you.
Okay, a question for you. I take it that the various conditions that you've added to your recommendation of approval have to do with making sure that if we award approval, we do so with some requirements that the petitioner will need to meet as far as the appearance of the property.
Correct.
And those will be all at his expense, correct?
Correct. That would be at the property owner's expense.
Including the removal of the curb cut
Correct.
and the repairs to the exterior of the building and so on.
Correct.
Thank you.
How will you make sure those things have been done?
If there were conditions placed upon this, it would be as part of the site plan improvement process that we deal with.
Thank you. So that's something then that the plan department confirms. has
Correct.
been done.
The planning staff are one of the individuals that are part of the site plan review and permitting process.
But you also confirm follow-up.
Correct.
Okay. It's not just the plan. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions before we suspend the rules?
Motion to suspend the rules?
Thank you. All right. Mr. Rodriguez, please come up.
Right, I'd like to clear something up. I am not the same guy that was in that property. I was just rented that property 3 months ago by the owners. It was for sale or lease. So I, rented the property with the intentions of doing a shop. But it seems as soon as the second day that I opened, there was already complaints. People were calling, making stuff up that, this and that. So it got to a point where they were just calling to get rid of me, basically. And I was just been there 3 months. And I wanted to do it the right way, but nobody was directing me the right way. So I'm here to do it the right way and eventually maybe turn it into a legit business and the right way, pay my taxes, and that's a dream of mine of owning a business. So with that, I appreciate it.
Sir?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And you are agreeable to removing the curb cut
Yes,
on Main
ma'am.
Street?
Yes,
and also
correct.
repairing the paint on the building?
Correct,
itself
yes.
so that it
I
gives a
painted
nice-
part of the building. I didn't go all the way through because it says I wasn't know if I was gonna get approved.
Right.
So I kinda halfway painted it. But yeah, I wanted to paint the whole building. I wanted to do some landscaping. But with the intentions that if I get turned down, I'm gonna do all that work for nothing.
Yeah, I
You
appreciate
know,
that.
and so I appreciate if you guys really pay attention and give me the opportunity to maybe have my dream come true.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Were there other questions?
Good luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Return?
Move to return. Second.
Thank you.
And I'd like to motion approval with the conditions that are recommended by the staff.
Second. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good luck.
Thank you. This will go to City Council then on August 16th.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, good luck. Item number 5, discussion on the request by the planning staff to amend Chapter 13-602, Table 6-1, and Chapter 13-1602 related to transient residential uses.
Hey, Madam Chair, this is a request to continue our ongoing discussion about transient residential properties. This is our first chance to present a draft to the Plan Commission.
I'm going to beg you'd excuse me for 1 minute. Does
Sure.
anyone need a break before we continue? Just thought I'd check.
Sure.
All right. Do I need to make a motion?
How long is this going to be?
Right.
Well, I'll keep it brief. So, The idea is that, as you know, staff's position, we have concerns about, we like to regulate land use, not occupancy. We felt that the current ordinance kind of overregulates these TRPs. So our proposal is attached within the agenda tonight. There is a marked up copy that's pretty red, and then we've provided a clean copy for you to take a look at. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the major changes. We can go through the ordinance if you want, but the biggest change is taking the conditional use permit out of the process. We would make these a permitted use in the R1, R2, and the RR districts. With that caveat is there's going to be some additional conditions that we placed on these particular type of uses. One being that they'd have to obtain a state of Wisconsin tourist rooming house permit from the state of Wisconsin. They'd also have to obtain a sales permit from the state. And I've tried to highlight some of the fees that are associated with that. There's been some ongoing discussion about room tax with the city and Brown County, so we're going to ask them to register with the City of Green Bay Treasurer to make sure that property is registered for Brown County tax. Brown County Health, that's also part of the current ordinance, but again, we'd ask them to consult with the Health Department, get some consent from them and come back. And then finally, we would issue a permit based on those requirements above. And we would insert a $300 review fee that is new to the ordinance. We currently charge $300 for a conditional use permit, so we're just applying that standard to the TRPs as well. And that's the highlight of the main changes. We took out some of the parking standards as they really didn't apply. No neighborhood meetings any longer. Basically, they would come to staff. We would look for those points. If they had them, we would be able to issue a permit, and they'd be on their way. We also have language in there that talks about, if there's violations, police calls, that again, the Plan Commission could be the body to review that, bring them back, and possibly revoke their license or their permit. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I can try and answer any questions you might have about the ordinance and talk through it further.
Thank you. Commissioner Wisniewski.
Paul, here's a direct concern of mine, these dollar amounts. Are you going to be retroactive or grandfathered into the other properties? And how are you going to deal with it?
I don't think we can do that legally. I think they've been approved and operating, so we can't do it retroactively. Again, if the property owner transfers or stops, then their CUP goes away and it's another non-conforming property gone. So it's like any other property, like a two-family, or we deal with those all the time. So we can't retroactively require that.
Following up on the fees question, do I understand that your proposal is a $300 state fee with an annual fee of $110 plus the 20 plus $300 for the city of Green Bay plus a $300 application and review fee?
I'm only suggesting $300 for the TRP permit for the city. Those other ones are determined by the state.
Okay. And
those are just for informational purposes, to give a feel for the cost.
I'm just trying to see frankly, the jump in the price of doing this kind of business
just went up.
It's gone up significantly. Right. And do I understand then that the City of Green Bay permit would be what you later refer to as the application and review fee?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I think that needs to be cleared up in the language that you offered to us here. Okay. And I'm wondering about the $300 fee that basically repeats what the state is already doing with the $300. When I think of it as an application and review fee, because we're going to be out of the business now of trying to second guess neighborhood feeling and expectations.
Yeah.
Whether or not a $100 fee that really does apply to the application and review process that the office needs to do wouldn't be more appropriate.
Well, that was our first choice. It could be adjusted by the Plan Commission or Council, certainly, but this is an administrative issue. It's an ongoing for us to maintain the existing TRPs, track down future ones that are hanging out there. Again, this ordinance is going to apply citywide to all types of short-term rentals, the Airbnbs, the VRBOs, and alike. So it's a little bit more involved than maybe more than $100.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay, I do think that needs to be sorted out with a little bit more care. Having it be the same amount as the state thing looks like double dipping in a strange sort of way into different pockets, but nonetheless. But you also mentioned the Airbnb. Am I right in assuming that there would still be a distinction here made between a bed and breakfast and a short-term rental? That is, if it were my home
Yes.
and I was renting a room, it would not fall under this.
That is true, correct.
Okay. I think that if there's some place that that can be clarified.
They are defined differently in the zoning code, so there's a set of definitions.
There
and
is a
they're-
kind of parenthetic, other than B&Bs or something like that, in this. I wonder if I can find it again. But while I'm looking for that, I'll ask you another question.
Sure.
Why would this not be possible in the R3s?
It could be possible, but those are traditionally high turnover, high transient uses by nature, multifamily. Not always, certainly, there are long-term rentals, but I think the focus was back on the 1- and 2-family neighborhoods and retaining a lot of that control. We're giving up some control on one side, gaining more control on the other side, just more administratively. So we just focused more on the single and 2-family neighborhoods.
Thank you. But without any longer keeping as the primary focus, as it was for the TRPs, the residential character of the neighborhood. I think that's a direct quote because we've used it so many times. That no longer is really on the table as something that has to be dealt with.
I think that's more subjective, I guess. You know, as we talked about previously, there are certain requirements that apply for parking, for noise, and everything else, and these uses are no different. They are still single-family or 2-family uses, and there's a complaint that comes in, we'll respond, and it doesn't matter if it's a TRP or not. So I think across the board, we're trying to be consistent about all types of rentals and being upfront.
But part of that consistency is to take out the issue about neighborhood entirely. It becomes the particular property.
It does, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Vice Chair?
I've heard many people say in dealing with these that there are places around that are already doing this, that are doing the TRP without approval.
Every day.
Yep. Is there a way to, if we see them or catch them, is there a way to bring them under this ordinance?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
So this issue came up the last council meeting. I think the council was looking for something to bite on, I guess might have been the term. So we put this draft together to have the plan commission kind of proof it and then send it on, hopefully. And like all the other uses that go on, it's a complaint issue, so we'd have to respond to it as a complaint. And if this is approved, that certainly would apply to Airbnb or whoever is renting. Would compel them by orders, then maybe eventually citations if need be.
Thank you.
Is the charge, the permit fee for the city, is that an annual fee or
No.
is that a one-time fee?
One-time fee. The other fees may be on an annual basis, potentially.
The Wisconsin one, it's 110 after the first year.
Yeah, because, I could see making the city's really going to have to review these every year, right, to make sure there's compliance with room tax and that they keep their licenses from the state current and so on, right?
There could be, and it's not just our department either, yes.
So I guess what I would throw out is, maybe this fee should be lower, but have it be an annual fee from the city.
We talked about that at staff level, except that may be more administrative for us to try and track everyone down. I mean, we're not trying to double dip certainly, but I think a lot of times our fee structures are one time and you're on your way. So we just try to be consistent with the conditional use like they were previously.
I looked into it a little, and this is almost identical to what Sturgeon Bay did recently. It's interesting that I wasn't aware that the state Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection has that regulation that a tourist rooming house has to be licensed and inspected through them. And so, these are obviously, they fall under their definition of a tourist rooming house. So, you know, it makes sense to start out and look at that and incorporate that into what we're doing. And I don't know if that was kind of the starting point here.
It was. I mean, we did look at other ordinances. They happen to be outside of the state of Wisconsin, but Sturgeon Bay certainly popped up on our radar because of its locality and, you know, it seemed to fit the bill, really. So we're kind of going vertical on some of this. We're trying to get help from others. There's different levels, there's state, county, and then locally. So we're trying to broaden that restriction even further.
There's a nice thing about the inspection part of that. I know that we had a property that we rented out as a vacation rental for a little while, and we had to change the electrical and change a few other things in order to make it more in line with the code and make sure that there were no hazards and that kind of thing. So that's really a positive for the properties that are out there.
I think as far as the fees go, not that I want to try to get as much money out of people as possible, but at the same time, the higher fees are going to dissuade just everybody from wanting to do it as well. So I mean, they were already paying a $300 fee to come through us, but basically now we're cutting the plan commission, cutting council out of it. It's just going through all of this as far as the right.
It's
So
kind of like a checklist, really.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, if it's anything like how the city goes through and checks compliance on buildings, I mean, that, they're pretty thorough. Again, an experience I had with the property we just purchased, so, yeah.
Gilbert, sorry.
Okay.
We're on last name basis now.
Come to that. At present, when we do a CUP, it's for as long as the owner owns the property. If he sells or whatever,
great.
then it reverts back to pre-existing.
Okay.
Is that going to remain so?
It remains in the ordinance,
It'll be
yes.
permitted, but only under that owner?
Right. We married the two together, yes.
Okay, so once if he sells the property, then it...
Null and void.
Null and void.
Okay, thank you for, that was my other question.
Thank you.
We try to keep a lot of that same language in. There's a lot of red, but we try to keep a lot of the language
In other words,
consistent.
what's working, keep it working.
Right.
And the case that you brought up too is.
Yeah, I read I did a little research and I read this thing from Cedarburg, this case, and, you know, it emphasizes the need for consistency in what you do.
Yeah.
And frankly, the fact that what we do right now is very inconsistent. And not, I mean, not through the fault of anybody here, but just that's the way it is.
Right. It feels very subjective.
And that's also true for the city council.
Right.
And you know, that does subject the city to potential lawsuit. You know, we had people here tonight talking about how we approved one last time, but then we didn't approve this one. Favoritism and what have you. You know, it does open you up to that. So I do kind of like the idea of having something that, you know, that makes sense and takes the politics and the subjectiveness out of it. I guess my last comment is that I do, before we would forward anything to the council, I would like to get the input of my colleagues on the council. I would suggest that we send them a memo outlining what is proposed here and why, and ask for input from my colleagues on the council, because otherwise, it'll hit them without any background. Chris, do you have any thought on that?
No, you read my mind. I think if this just appeared next week, it'll come back, because it was a major change, it's a major shift, good or bad.
Well,
And I see some good things in here, but it just needs a little more digesting, I think.
I think part of this too is that what I'm guessing, since I've only been on the commission since March, is that this started out as the Packer Party House thing, these TRPs, but the problem is, or I guess not necessarily a problem, but with Airbnb and these other rentals, it's not necessarily just a Packer thing anymore. And it's all across the country, so it's not something unique to our area. But this would definitely take that subjectiveness out of it, and it goes through all of the permits and the inspections, and they're pretty thorough. So I feel incredibly comfortable with this.
Yeah, we could put our heads in the sand and pretend that this isn't going on,
Right.
but we know that it is. And I read an article about Chicago was going through the same debate on this, and an alderman in Chicago said, this is the Jetsons, we're not going back to the Flintstones. And I think, I think that's really what it is. You can say, well, it would have been great not to have any short-term rentals, but this court case did make a point that residential property is residential regardless of what length of time it's rented for. If it's rented for a week, or if it's rented for a year, it still has the residential character. And I don't know, the experiences that these properties that we've approved in the past have probably been maintained to a higher standard than they would have if they had been longer-term rentals. Because the property owners have to maintain them in order to sell them on a short-term basis. So, I do think it does make a certain amount of sense. I know this might be a tough thing for residents to understand and my colleagues on the council to understand, but, it does provide a consistent way of doing it. It looks at it from what makes sense from a planning perspective. So obviously there was a lot of thought that went into this.
Yeah, thank you, staff, for this.
In terms of the zones that it is allowed in, I'd be willing to discuss that if we want to. Whether it's allowed in RE3 or not.
No need.
Let's,
Alderman,
sorry. Thank you, Alderman Nenning. I know Commissioner.
I forgot what I was going to say.
You have to write it down.
Well, I just wanted to echo one thing that David said, that I believe we should have an ongoing fee on a yearly basis, really consider doing that. And the sooner the better with this thing to get us up front with a consistent way of handling them and help us get our heads buried in the sand, please.
And we have a staff member. Mark.
Oh, and I want to ask you about the B&B on Nicolay Drive. Does this affect that?
No, because that's a B&B.
Only if it's approved, it will affect it. Otherwise,
No,
it's
no,
not.
it's a B&B.
It's not a,
We just changed subjects, and I want to know the answer. I want to know about this too, but can we stick with this first?
Thank you.
It would not affect the B&B.
Oh, okay.
To touch a little bit on Alderman Nenning said, through our meetings and review of this and meeting with legal, it looks like because of ongoing trends in the kind of countrywide with lawsuits in various places, whatnot, more and more communities are going an administrative route with review fees and other licenses for these type of things.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Brim.
So following up that on the fees, if we did have an annual fee, we could also cut down the upfront 300, which I would really like to do, because you'd be adding on year by year to cover the annual costs. I do think the whole process of making sure that these things are done right is important for us. We do have a history we have to deal with here. And given that history, of which we were just reminded, the party house history, I think it would be really smart to get rid of the word TRP and to put short-term rental everywhere it occurs, unless it is referring to our current ordinance. As we currently have TRP, we're concerned with the lack of consistency in that. We're working toward a more consistent thing which would apply to all rentals, all short-term rentals, and then in your suggested ordinance, change that residential, transient residential use to short-term rental in every case. I think that may help us. I think we want to get rid of the word transient.
I agree.
It sounds like transient hotels, and we know what they're for, and we don't want to trigger that association on people's minds. So I would really urge that rewriting, and then I would also urge that on point 12, where you talk about the use complying with all requirements of this ordinance and all applicable standards of the Green Bay Municipal Code, I would add to that, including but not limited to those that limit outdoor events and noise levels, so that we are reminding people that we're still looking to those nuisance ordinances as a part of what we're working with here. I think it would be reassuring, because we will have a public that says, oh my God, they're going to turn us all into party houses. No neighborhood is safe anymore. So let's do what we can to remind them that our intention is to expand safety by being more careful with the nuisance ordinances. Those would be my suggestions on this, and I really like the approach. I think it's time we got out of the neighborhood business.
One more thing.
Yes.
I agree with what she just said, basically. I think getting rid of the transient residential verbiage eliminates the party house, because all along it's been the same damn thing. And now we've switched gears and become professional, I would say.
Become short-term rentals.
Yeah, I agree.
And I've noticed that Schwaben and their dealings with this aspect, they're using the term short-term rental.
Yeah.
So
Is there a definition for short-term?
We're defining this.
Oh, we're defining it, all right.
Less than 28 days, right? Yeah.
On the permit itself, I know we struck out the language that talks about specifying the maximum number of occupants and the maximum number of vehicles. Is that wise?
Well, it's kind of a moving target. When I talk to our residential inspectors who enforce the UDC, the Uniform Dwelling Code, they really can't put their finger on our max capacity either. So for us to specify and not be able to follow up and enforce it is kind of a challenge. The parking standards, it's a single-family home. It's entitled to 2 parking spaces. They can widen their driveway if necessary, but I wouldn't over-regulate the parking. It's because we have those things in place already. If they're not on an approved driveway, they shouldn't be parking on the grass, except on game day.
Fall into the typical residential.
Again, we're trying to fall back to, this is just a single-family home, and we enforce it just like any other property.
On game day anyway.
We can do that, yes.
So, would it be realistic to do a yearly inspection? I know you talked about staff. Is that something like Donna Rosenthal's office would handle as far as compliance, or are we kind of?
I don't think we're suggesting that at all, no. I think this is simply permission saying that you've met these criteria in the ordinance, be on your way, and then there might be follow-up if you're suggesting an annual review or annual fee. They'll have to go back to the state and obtain their license, but.
Otherwise it'd be by complaint.
Otherwise by complaint, right?
Complaint-driven.
Right, otherwise from a staff perspective, that's rather large for us to tackle.
Gotcha, okay.
The question about maximum occupancy raises for me one other point, and that is early on, and I can't find a particular place here, at least in our conversations, we talked about developing this in such a way as to reach out to longer-term rentals as well. And it would seem to me that that might be one of the ways in which we would want to reach out to longer-term rentals. That is, figure out some way of getting that maximum dwelling stuff underway. And I hear what you're saying about how difficult that is.
Right.
But it would certainly deal with some of the problems that we've had expressed here as complaints about rentals with, these huge numbers of people, extended families in a single house and all of that.
Right.
Do we want to
I think that
go that route?
we're operating under 2 different codes. One is the UDC, which is a state requirement, and then there's a housing code that we have.
Right.
I don't know, we may have to change the housing code to establish a number like that, and I don't know how challenging that would be.
Actually, the ones that are in existence probably, in order to comply with state law, probably should have that proof of license from the state anyway, right?
Right.
You may not know
Yeah,
it.
that was one thing too, yeah.
In theory, they should, but they're not required to have it, so that's why we're making that a requirement now. Right.
But the state probably requires it, if you look at the state law.
They probably do, but then it's an enforcement issue. How do you find them? And, you know, it kind of trickles down to the local level for us to help enforce that, I guess.
So we didn't build it into our TRP, the state requirement.
Initially, we didn't, this is a new addition, yes.
Right, but I mean, as far as what we've been operating under, we've been ignoring the state requirement and leaving it up to the people,
Well, I don't-
whether or not they would do it.
I don't know if we've been ignoring it in 2009. I'm not sure that was in place at that point.
Ah, good point,
So,
yeah. Okay, let's hope not.
but I guess, again, Surgeon Bay with their language seemed to be
But much
the,
better to have it there.
yeah.
So far, we're I mean, if we include the one that well, let's not include that because it still has to go to council. We really only approved 12.
12 are active right
Are
now,
active,
yeah.
right.
Are they mostly in R1 zoning, or is it?
They're all in R1 zoning.
R1?
Yeah, and 3 of them are in R1 zoning, but they're two-family uses. They're
That one's
duplexes.
a two-family. That one's a two-family.
Good work, guys.
Can we thank all of the Weary for getting us to this point? That's where it all started.
Oh, boy. I think Paul was probably met a dozen times reading that first one, right?
Something like that.
Well, maybe Chris and I can talk about this a little. It seems to me that if we just send this to the council as it is, it's just not good. I think we really should take the step of sending a memo, from staff to to all of our colleagues explaining what is proposed here and why it's proposed, and that it'll be on our next agenda, and give us your thoughts, comments.
And it would be on our next agenda for action.
Yeah, I don't know, do you have any comments right offhand, since they're mostly in your district right now?
on the back.
Really?
I was just looking at it.
Oh, the agenda says just discussion.
It's okay with the chair, I did have one
It
question.
says recommendation is approval of the request.
I guess, Chairwoman, I do have one
Yes.
question, thank you. I do like the idea of at least waiting a month, because sometimes if things are highlighted, you don't know, major change, it doesn't flash out anymore. Paul, nice job here. Am I reading this right, that the corporate retreat now, there was one on Shadow Lane, if you remember, that was denied, and it kind of has wiggled through a little loophole that they allow a corporation to kind of let all its employees stay there. And there's still causing problems, but they don't have a permit. But now, by not needing a permit, they still would be considered, it seems like we're broadening it almost to include them now, right?
Yeah.
Would that-
Everybody.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because we denied them, but they still do it, and legal is saying they have a loophole where they can still do it. It's been a problem.
Has it been a problem, you mean with the neighbors, or has it been a
No,
problem where
some of the
they're,
neighbors, yeah.
they're having a noise issue or something?
Yeah. and You can remind them to call the police, but
Just the fact that they're doing it.
fortunately on weekends, we don't have inspectors. We don't, it's the police, and if they can't get there, well, then it never happened. Unless someone takes a picture, right? I mean, that's just,
Yeah, I'm not sure that our colleagues knew what we were talking about here, because they didn't get the whole staff report, so that's why I really like to kind of take it slow and do this right, and try to let people understand it and give us their comments on it. And it might all come back negative, but it's better to know what the comments are than
Well, we could do this, we could revise the ordinance, and you could see it again if you want. In the meantime, I could prepare a memo and attach the ordinance and get it to the council. They have a few weeks to look at it, and then invite them in if they want to come in and talk about it. And then the September meeting, we could, go forward with the discussion and action if you chose.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's great.
I think in that memo, the important thing is to talk about why we're doing this,
Consistency loss.
I think, no matter how it gets communicated, whether it's formally sent and then formally sent back, I think some direction from the council of other things that we there's other things that we should be considering looking at to get direction now, so that when,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
keep this process organic.
A step in between would prevent doing the work on the council chambers.
Right, right.
I wonder if we should take advantage of the fact that our agenda does not identify this as an action item. We've had this
You're right.
discussion. How about if we put it on the next agenda as an action item?
Mhm.
And in the meanwhile, send out this memo
Yes.
to the council members so that any of those who wish to be part of that discussion could come.
Or if we get feedback, I can let you know, and, you know,
Yes.
then they can invite them in and,
Excellent.
yeah. okay.
Invite them to verbal or attendance or both.
We'll lay out the process
A lot of them
for
won't come, and now they've got it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put them on notice, so to speak.
Put them on notice.
Because I am concerned with the subjectiveness of how we've been handling them, and then when you look at that lawsuit from Cedar Creek, like,
Cedarburg.
yeah, I mean, that just, I mean, because really,
Yeah.
we're being subjective about it, and
Yeah.
so they, I mean, that opens us up.
Actually, I'm
Yes.
surprised we haven't gotten mail before.
So, the ordinance is amended to a certain degree based on your discussion. You talked about an annual fee. Is there a dollar amount you want associated with that, or is that a direction you want to go, or?
The annual, maybe 100.
$100?
The-
150.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Would you
easy.
put the original fee at 150 and then annually 150 as well?
Original at 150 and annually it's somewhat less.
Annually 100.
The original would be 150 and then ongoing 100?
But I think we're doing the same amount of work each year. I think up front they have an inspection for the state, which is why they have that, and then each year it gets progressively lower, versus ours, we're gonna be doing the same amount of work each year. So I
So
don't
it's
know,
even-
I don't necessarily know that a higher
So it
one would
shouldn't
benefit
go down.
anybody.
So what about assessing what other areas do and what kind of work you need to do every year and doing it that way? But I agree that an annual fee makes sense, even though it would require someone doing it. If there are 1,000 TRPs and it's $100, then that's
It also
enough to
keeps
pay
the-
someone to do that full time.
It also keeps the property owner accountable every year.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And if they didn't keep up to date, it would
Yes.
lapse?
Yep.
Sturgeon Bay did not have a fee for the local permit to begin with, but they indicated that they might charge one later. And I think it's best to just do it right off the bat.
Should I include 100, just
Yeah.
throw it out there? 100 to start, 100 annual?
Ongoing?
You can always raise it.
Sure.
And, you know, I don't know how, what length of time is their state permit? Is that annual or every 2 years?
It's annual, I believe.
It's a one-time 300 and then annual permit fee of
And
110.
then annual of 100, okay.
Or 110 in their case.
110.
So up front, they'd have to pay $410 just for the state of Wisconsin, is that how I'm reading it? $300 just for the pre-inspection fee, and then the permit itself is $110.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't reading that properly before then.
I,
So it's 410.
Yeah.
pretty excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm
You
ecstatic.
know,
Oh my God, thank you guys so much for this.
It'll help validate the process too if we do it annually, because then we can go back and check these again. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, make sure they're operating appropriately, so that makes
I like
sense.
that.
Yeah, and I think the penalties for non-compliance is important too. So, yeah, let's keep that in there.
Yeah, ongoing, really, if there's a caveat of infractions, they should be charged more.
Right.
Or could we deny them?
Well, yeah, we can always do that.
The license, reapply for 20.
Well, it's an administrative issue, then if they meet these certain criteria, we're obliged to approve it.
Right.
But again, if they're operating, there's violations, then they can come back to the plan commission, we could consider revoking their permit.
But we've got a $500 no-no in here, right?
Yes, yes.
Wait, what?
Okay. Olympics are calling.
Could we, at this point, however, have an update on, well, with your update about what's happened with the bed and breakfast that apparently is.
Oh. Do we have to do any, is there any action on this, or is it just?
If you just want to make a motion, then I can, what I'll do is I'll revise the ordinance based on your modifications. I will take that draft the memo, attach that to the council, requesting their comments. And then we'll bring that back to the next plan commission meeting for discussion and action.
Move to do that.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
So now the B&B?
Now it's director's update.
Sure, I guess, I mean,
I have one more thing.
we got one more.
Oh, you do? Sorry to intrude.
Yeah.
I know B&Bs are really exciting. But I have exciting news. So far this year, we've had more plating applications than we've had since the housing market bust in '07, so I have some updates for you. This is for the preserve, which is on Huron and Whittier. So this area has 4 separate phases. This has already been approved here. So the second phase is out here. So all these lots are going to be developed. That just got signed last week, so they should be starting development relatively soonly. This is something that you guys have seen before. This is on Western, just behind Military Avenue. This building came through to do a variance, and we denied them because they should have condoed their building. So they condoed their building. So that's got pre-final approval right now, so they should be getting final approval very soon. So it doesn't really change anything with the land use, but it does clean it up legally. Bradley Estates is off of Sitka and Ontario, which this has also been to Plan Commission. As you can see, the road design did change, and it was what we had looked at twice. So with that, they are able to get final signature right now, but they're looking at the cost because Sitka Street is getting redone next year. So with that, the cost might be less if they apply for their final at that point. So this is pretty much ready to go, but they're just looking at a cost-benefit analysis at this point with the cost as far as the infrastructure is concerned.
So that road is moved off of that house?
Yeah, it's on the.
Right to the center, right between the lot lines, which is what we had wanted. So we're good to go there. And then the one that was with this application that was north of Sitka Street came in for a preliminary review but hasn't gone any further. They're having some naming issues, and they'll probably do their final when Sitka is getting redone as well. So both of those should be getting developed in the next 2 to 3 years. And the last one I have is Sandridge Park South. This is their first edition, so this was approved quite a while ago. They came in about 2009 to get a second approval. Then they're redoing this, so this is a little harder to figure out. Mason Street is all the way up here. This is Hillcrest, and Camel Court is in the middle of here. They just recently vacated that, so that way they can put in Sandridge Court, which is a little bit more narrow. So with that, they have a huge environmental area that they have to do some impacts on. It's in the airport zoning area, so there are a lot of different permits that are going to have to get done, but they're almost done with this. I think at this point, we're waiting for final signature based on a stormwater management plan that should be done this week. So lots of activity with land division, so just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Cool. Thank you, that's great.
Now, B&B.
I guess, specific question, I don't know, Paul, if you want to update where, I believe you're referring to Sunset Ed and B&B Nicolay Drive and where they are at.
Yeah, so they have a site plan that's been submitted and a building plan. They're in the final stages of getting site plan approval. We haven't approved it yet, and the building plan, I believe, has been approved or on the way. So they need a site plan and building plan to get a building permit to start the work. There is a stop work order on the site right now because of some fill that was placed there. That's kind of been the ire of the neighbors. But there is plans to, level that, regrade it to make the site work from a stormwater perspective. Neighbors are not happy with this particular use. It is a permitted use in that district in C1. They feel it's not a fit for the neighborhood. The main concern they have is about parking. The B&B has been advertising events of 100 people or more, and the neighbors are concerned that that's going to spill over to Nicolay Drive, and it's going to be a parking issue. I've been talking to neighbors, I talked to a couple neighbors today already, and it's been an ongoing issue. We're trying to address it, but they do meet the parking standards on site based on the use. But again, there might be these events that occur, much like the wellness center, that just get large, and they'll have to provide parking off-site most likely, or shuttles somehow.
I've got an idea.
UWGB shuttle?
They will not, UWGB will not work with them.
Oh, how about the golf course? They have a nice parking lot.
It's my understanding GB will not work with them.
That's GB too.
Really?
Still GB, yeah. Wow.
They will not provide off-site parking.
So what is the reason for that?
Holy smoke.
They don't have to.
That's a policy. They do
Oh, okay.
Oh.
They
the
just
ride
don't
programs, but they don't do
promote
it, they don't solicit to
that.
local
It's not
businesses.
specifically them, it's just that they don't do that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
How about
They
the
do
veterans?
park and rides, but they don't do for businesses
How
necessarily.
about the veterans? Probably not either.
The veterans?
Yeah, Veterans
Yeah.
Hospital, shuttle.
Well, they can park anywhere they want. It's just going to be an inconvenience if they have an event that's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
large.
They can park on the street too.
Well, they
Well,
can, but that
that's for
presents
the neighbors.
issues, and there's potentially an ability to restrict or limit parking on Nicolay.
our approval was of a B&B, right?
Our approval was a rezoning from, we straightened up the lot lines in the zoning because they went diagonally through there. The neighbors still had questions about that particular process, but, you know, that's in the past. So we're focusing now on the site plan, the building plan, and getting them on their way. If they don't start this year, there is still an issue with the stop work order. We're gonna have that site regraded to at least address the erosion control and basic grading issues. So that's where it sits right now.
Thinking of a B&B, I sure didn't think about large-scale events.
It's a structure that has, I think, 10 rooms plus the dwelling unit. So it's a B&B because it's a primary residence of the
Right.
owner. If it was a hotel, it required a conditional use permit, totally different story. Neighbors are concerned about the height of the structure, but it does meet height requirements, meets setback requirements, so
The latest,
they're struggling with that.
Latest, they're going to provide a boat landing and launching and snowmobile
They are, yeah.
access to DNR and a breakwater. It's been cleared. I thought they work with them for breakwater and access.
Those are all things through the DNR, and they need local erosion control, but they're getting permits through the DNR to do that, yes.
Well, it's the same people. There's not any more people.
Same people?
The same people. I don't care how they slice it. They're just the same people. As a matter of fact, they put out a mailing on it to jack everybody up.
I know.
And the person.
That's why I'm getting calls.
The person who put the mailing out, by the way, for your own information, don't even live on Nicolay Drive or at Smith. She lives on Wiggins Way. She didn't sign it, by the way, either. She put that mailing out and never signed it.
So, but if you have questions, let me know, but that's what I know as it stands today.
Thank you. Apartments on Cherry Street ramp.
Isn't that
That's
cool?
good.
Super cool. Apartments on Cherry Street ramp.
Yeah, cool.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, I like the quote.
Yeah.
Oh, right, well, of course.
Yeah, that will be going to RDA tomorrow, in terms of just moving forward with a financial package on that, the RDA and city. It's a term sheet right now. We've got a lot of discussion about, you know, some of the engineering and due diligence. If that moves forward, they'll probably just come internally, working with the tech review team. I mean, it's a unique site in terms of, you know, building way up in the air, so just, you know, applying zoning requirements and parking and all those other types of things. I mean, there's a lot of technical details yet to still work out, but they're ready to kind of get some direction from the city in terms, and the RDA in terms of a partnership on that. Just a quick update, council actions from our last council meeting. The CUP for the TRP at 1059 Shadow got kicked back here, obviously, and kicked it back here today. CUP for the TRP at 1810 Ridge. The CUP for the auto repair on Brook Street, and the CUP for the drive-through on 1250 Velp. Those all went through. Council vacated, or started the process to vacate the right-of-way at Frank and Shadow. It's the Eyebrow cul-de-sac, part of the Venesi project. And then the rezonings for the Venesi project, and the rezoning for 1599 University Avenue, that's the self-storage up by Elizabeth Street. Those went through, had their first reading. They got advanced to third reading, so that'll be at the next council meeting. They'll have a public hearing and final reading next Tuesday.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Motion adjourned.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mom.